You have just woken up as a saber-toothed tiger on the frozen plains of the Ice Age. For the next 3 hours, you are going to experience stalking giant bison, fending off packs of dire wolves, and even staring into the campfires of early humans. And this won't be easy, so good luck. But before we get into this journey of the saber-toothed tiger, I'd appreciate it if you could subscribe, like the video, and leave a comment telling me where you're listening from and what creature you'd like to live as next. Now, let's begin this epic adventure together. Dawn stretch. On the meadow. The world exists in that quiet space between night and day, where darkness hasn't quite released its hold but light begins to creep across the ancient landscape. My eyes open slowly, pupils adjusting to the grey-blue hush that blankets everything. The air carries a coolness that will vanish once the sun climbs higher. But for now, it feels perfect against my thick fur. I stretch, feeling each muscle wake up along my powerful frame. My front paws extend forward, claws briefly emerging to grip the earth beneath me. The familiar weight of my canine teeth reminds me of what I am, what I was born to be. These long curved sabers aren't just for show, they're precision instruments, perfectly designed for the work ahead. The meadow spreads out before me, a vast expanse of grassland, dotted with clusters of juniper and oak. Everything glistens with morning dew, each blade of grass holding tiny pearls of moisture that catch the earliest hints of sunlight. When I lower my head to drink from a small pool that's formed in a rocky depression, the water tastes of minerals and earth, clean and cold. But it's the scents that truly wake me up. My nose twitches as I catalogue the invisible stories floating on the morning air. There's the sharp chemical tang of the tar pits to the east, those sticky black pools that trap unwary animals and preserve their bones for ages to come. The smell always carries a warning, a reminder to stay alert even in this peaceful moment. From the northwest comes the musky scent of a mammoth herd, probably a day's travel away. I can distinguish the adults from the young ones, can even detect that one of the older females might be injured. There's a subtle note of infection in the air that speaks of an open wound. My stomach tightens with interest, though I know mammoths are dangerous prey, best tackled with help from my siblings. Closer, much closer. I catch the earthy smell of ground sloths moving through the oak groves. Their scent is heavy and warm, mixed with the plants they've been eating. These creatures move slowly, methodically, and while they're not as large as mammoths, they're still formidable with their powerful claws. But they're also predictable in their habits, and predictability in prey is something I can work with. The breeze shifts, bringing new information. There's the sharp, clean scent of deer, several of them, probably grazing near the stream that runs through the center of our territory. My mouth begins to water slightly. Deer are quick, challenging, but their meat is tender and sweet. The hunt would be satisfying, though it would require careful planning and perfect timing. I stand fully now, my body reaching its impressive height. The muscles along my shoulders and haunches feel strong and ready. My tail lashes once, twice, as I survey my domain. This territory has been in my family for generations, passed down through careful teaching and fierce defense. Every rock, every tree, every game trail is mapped in my memory. The borders of my territory stretch from the twin boulders near the tar pits to the lightning-struck oak by the river, then south to the rocky outcrop where eagles nest, and finally back to the cliff face where we shelter during storms. It's a good territory, rich in prey and water, with plenty of places to ambush unsuspecting animals. But territory means nothing without the strength to defend it. I've fought for this land, marked it with my scent, and proven my right to hunt here. The scratch marks on the old oak tree near the center of my domain tell the story of my victory's deep gouges in the bark that announce my presence to any who might challenge me. My hunger sits in my belly like a small, warm coal. It's not desperate yet, not the gnawing emptiness that drives reckless hunting, but it's there, constant and patient. I had a successful hunt 3 days ago, bringing down a young bison that had wandered too far from its herd. The meat sustained me well, but now my body begins to ask for more fuel. I can be patient, though. Patience is perhaps the most important skill a predator can possess. Rushing leads to mistakes, and mistakes in the hunt can mean injury or starvation. Better to wait, to watch, to plan. The right opportunity will present itself, as it always does. The sun edges higher, painting the sky in soft shades of gold and pink. The dew begins to evaporate, releasing the green scent of growing things into the morning air. Somewhere in the distance, a saber-toothed cat calls not one of my family, but another of my kind, marking their own territory. The sound is deep and resonant, carrying across the landscape like a promise and a warning combined. Birds begin to wake up in the trees around me, their songs creating a complex symphony of chirps and trills. They're not prey for me too small, too quick, too much energy, for too little reward. But they're useful in other ways. Their sudden silence can warn of approaching danger. Their alarm calls can reveal the location of other predators or prey animals. I begin to move across the meadow, my paws silent on the soft earth. Each step is deliberate, controlled. The massive muscles in my legs coil and release with practiced efficiency. This is how I was built to move not with the bounding energy of smaller cats, but with the steady, inexorable power of something that doesn't need to hurry because it's already perfectly designed for its purpose. The morning air carries one more scent that makes me pause, the sharp, clean smell of my siblings, somewhere to the south. They're moving, probably beginning their own morning surveys of the territory. We hunt together sometimes, especially when the prey is large or dangerous, but we also respect each other's space, each other's right to make the first attempt at a kill. Family bonds run deep in my kind, but so does the need for individual success. We share territory, share information, share the responsibility of defending our land. But when hunger strikes, when the moment of the hunt arrives, each of us must prove worthy of the life we've chosen. The sun climbs higher, burning away the last of the grey-blue hush. The day officially begins, bringing with it all the possibilities and dangers that come with the light. Somewhere out there, prey animals are beginning their own morning routines, unaware that death might be stalking them on silent paws. The eternal dance of predator and prey continues, as it has for countless thousands of years, as it will for thousands more. My stomach reminds me again of its needs, just a gentle nudge toward action. Soon, I'll need to hunt, but for now, I'm content to stand in the warming morning air, master of my domain, perfectly adapted to the world that shaped me, ready for whatever the day might bring. First thirst at the river bend. The morning sun has climbed higher now, warming my fur and sending lazy heat waves dancing across the meadow. My body tells me it's time to drink, time to visit the river that forms the heart of my territory. Water is life in this ancient landscape, and the river bend has been my family's primary source for generations. I move with purpose now, my powerful legs carrying me across the grassland toward the distant line of cottonwoods that marks the water's edge. The ground beneath my paws changes as I walk from the soft earth of the meadow to harder packed dirt, then to the rocky approach that leads down to the river itself. The sound reaches me before I see the water. It's a gentle murmur, the quiet conversation between current and stone that speaks of steady flow and reliable depth. This isn't the raging torrent that sometimes follows heavy rains, nor the disappointing trickle that comes during the driest summers. This is the river at its most dependable, offering clear, cold water that tastes of mountain snowmelt and clean stone. As I approach the bend, I slow my pace, allowing all my senses to gather information. The river is a gathering place, a crossroads where the paths of many different animals intersect. Prey comes here to drink, but so do competitors, rivals, and potential threats. Wisdom lies in careful observation before committing to the exposed position that drinking requires. The bank slopes gently down to the water's edge, covered in smooth stones worn round by countless years of flowing water. Patches of soft mud lie between the rocks, and it's here that I find the day's first intelligence. The riverbank is a library written in tracks and scent, a daily newspaper that tells me who has been here, when they arrived, and what they might have been thinking. I lower my massive head to examine the mud more closely. They're the delicate hoofprints of deer, probably a small group that came to drink just after dawn. The tracks are sharp and clear, meaning they're fresh, perhaps only an hour old. I file this information away. Deer are creatures of habit, and if they drank here this morning, they'll likely return this evening. Nearby, I find the broader, deeper impressions left by a ground sloth. The tracks show the characteristic claw marks, longer than my own, designed for digging and defense, rather than hunting. The sloth moved slowly, deliberately, probably stopping to feed on the tender shoots that grow near the water's edge. These creatures are formidable opponents. Despite their plant-eating habits, those claws can cause serious injury to a careless predator. But it's the next set of tracks that makes me pause, that causes the fur along my spine to rise slightly. Wolf prints, and not just one set, but several. A pack passed through here recently, their paw prints overlapping in the soft mud. I can count at least 4 distinct sets of tracks, possibly more. The wolves of this time aren't the smaller creatures that will roam these lands in distant ages to come. These are dire wolves, massive and powerful, with bone-crushing jaws and the intelligence to hunt in coordinated groups. I study the tracks more carefully, reading the story they tell. The wolves were moving at a steady pace, not the quick trot of hunters in pursuit, but the methodical gait of animals, surveying their territory. They paused here to drink, and I can see where one of them, the largest, probably the pack leader, lifted his leg to mark a nearby boulder. The scent is still strong enough to make my nostrils flare. It's a complex smell that speaks of dominance, territory, and warning. The message is clear. This pack considers the river to be within their hunting grounds. They're not necessarily claiming it exclusively, but they're announcing their presence, their strength, their willingness to defend what they consider theirs. This information changes my morning calculations. Wolves are competitors, not prey. They hunt many of the same animals I do, and while a single wolf would give me a wide berth, a pack of dire wolves is a different matter entirely. They're intelligent enough to recognize me as a threat to their hunting success, and bold enough to attempt to drive me away if they encounter me at a kill site. I follow the wolf tracks for a few more yards, reading the story of their passage. They headed southeast after drinking, toward the bison grazing grounds. If I'm unlucky, they might attempt to bring down one of the large herbivores before I have a chance to hunt. If I'm very unlucky, they might succeed, leaving me to compete with them for access to the carcass. But that's a concern for later. Right now, my body's need for water takes precedence over strategic planning. I approach the river's edge carefully, choosing a spot where the bank is low and the water runs clear over a bed of smooth stones. The current here is gentle but steady, perfect for drinking without worry about hidden obstacles or dangerous depths. I lower my head to the water, and the first touch of liquid against my tongue is like a small shock of pleasure. The water is cold, almost shockingly so, carrying the memory of mountain peaks and underground springs. It tastes clean and mineral-rich, free from the organic flavors that would suggest stagnant pools or algae blooms. I drink deeply, my long tongue lapping efficiently at the flowing water. The cold spreads through my body, awakening systems that had been dormant during the night's rest. My muscles feel more limber, my senses sharper. Hydration is crucial for everything I do. Hunting requires stamina, fighting requires strength, and both require the clear thinking that comes from a properly functioning body. As I drink, I remain alert to the sounds around me. The river makes its own music, but within that constant murmur, I can distinguish other sounds. The splash of a fish jumping somewhere upstream, the rustle of small animals moving through the reeds on the opposite bank, the distant call of a bird that might be signaling the presence of something large moving through the grasslands. The water also carries scents that the land-based breeze might miss. I can smell the muddy richness of the riverbed, the green scent of water plants, and something else, something that makes me lift my head and test the air more carefully. It's a scent I don't immediately recognize, something animal, but not quite familiar. I follow the scent upstream, moving carefully along the rocky bank. The smell grows stronger as I approach a bend in the river where fallen logs create a natural dam. There, in the quieter water of the resulting pool, I find the source of the unfamiliar scent. It's a beaver, but not like the smaller beavers that will populate these waters in future ages. This is a giant beaver, as large as a modern bear, with massive teeth designed for cutting through the largest trees. The creature is working steadily, adding branches to what appears to be a dam repair project. I watch from a distance, studying this potential prey. The giant beaver is formidable, its size and powerful teeth making it a dangerous opponent. But it's also slow on land, and if I could catch it away from the water, it might be vulnerable. The meat would be rich and plentiful, enough to sustain me for days. But the beaver is alert, probably aware of my presence. Even though I've been careful to stay downwind, it pauses in its work, massive head turning in my direction. For a moment, we regard each other across the water predator and prey, each calculating the other's capabilities and intentions. The beaver decides that discretion is the better part of valor. With a powerful stroke of its broad tail, it disappears beneath the surface of the pool, leaving only ripples to mark its passage. I wait, watching the water, but the creature has found some underwater refuge where it can wait out my presence. I file this information away as well. The beaver will return to its work, probably after I've moved on. But now I know where to find it, know its habits, and its escape routes. That knowledge might prove valuable in the coming days. I return to the main current to finish drinking, my thirst now completely satisfied. The cold water has awakened my body fully, sharpening my senses and preparing me for the day's activities. The sun continues its climb, promising heat that will drive many animals to seek shade during the middle hours of the day. But those same animals will emerge again as evening approaches, driven by their own needs for water and food. And when they do, I'll be ready for them, my body properly hydrated, my mind sharp with the intelligence I've gathered during this morning visit to the river bend. The water flows on, carrying my scent downstream, taking news of my presence to whatever animals might be waiting in the territories beyond my own. In this ancient world, information travels on the wind and in the water, a constant stream of intelligence that helps determine who lives and who dies in the endless dance of survival. Stalking the shaggy bison herd. The morning sun has reached its full strength now, casting sharp shadows and filling the air with the drowsy warmth that will soon drive many animals to seek shelter. But opportunity doesn't wait for comfort, and the information I've gathered this morning has pointed me toward a chance that may not come again soon. From my position on a low ridge overlooking the central grasslands, I can see a small herd of bison grazing perhaps half a mile away. These aren't the massive beasts that will dominate these plains in ages to come, but they're still formidable creatures, each one easily outweighing me by hundreds of pounds. Their shaggy coats move like ocean waves as they feed, heads down, massive shoulders bunching and relaxing with each step. I count them carefully, 2 adult bulls, 3 cows, and what appears to be a yearling staying close to its mother. The bulls are magnificent specimens, their horns curved and sharp, their muscles rippling beneath thick fur. They're also the most dangerous, capable of charging with devastating speed despite their size. The cows are smaller, but still powerful, and just as protective of their young. But it's the yearling that captures my attention. Still large enough to provide substantial meat, but not yet fully grown into the formidable defensive capabilities of the adults. Young animals are often less experienced, more prone to making mistakes when panic sets in. If I can separate it from the herd, if I can create the right circumstances, it might be possible to bring it down. I begin my descent from the ridge, moving with the careful deliberation that has kept my kind alive for countless generations. Each step is placed with precision, my massive paws finding purchase on rocky outcrops, avoiding loose stones that might clatter and alert my quarry. The muscles in my shoulders and haunches coil and release with practiced efficiency, carrying my considerable weight without disturbing the silence. The grassland between the ridge and the herd is a maze of possibilities and dangers. Scattered clumps of tall ryegrass provide cover, but they also limit my line of sight. Rocky outcrops offer concealment, but create noise if I'm not careful. The wind shifts constantly, carrying my scent toward the herd one moment, away from them the next. I pause behind a boulder to reassess the situation. The bison have moved slightly, following the freshest grass toward a small depression where water has collected after recent rains. This movement brings them closer to a grove of oak trees, perfect cover for the final approach. But it also means they're now grazing in a more confined space, where escape routes are limited. This could work in my favor if I can get close enough. But it also means that if something goes wrong, I'll be facing the entire herd in close quarters. The yearling is still staying close to its mother, but I notice something encouraging. The young bison occasionally wanders a few yards away to investigate particularly interesting patches of grass, always returning to the safety of the herd, but showing the curiosity that marks youth. If I can time my approach correctly, I might catch it during one of these brief separations. I move forward again, using the ryegrass as cover. The stalks are tall enough to hide my body when I crouch low, but they require careful movement to avoid creating the telltale wave pattern that would announce my presence. I place each paw deliberately, testing the ground before committing my weight, pausing frequently to listen and observe. The scent of the bison grows stronger as I approach a rich, musky smell mixed with the green fragrance of the grass they've been eating. It's a smell that speaks of strength and life, of meat and survival. My mouth begins to water slightly, and I have to consciously control the hunting instincts that want to drive me forward too quickly. 20 yards from the herd, I can hear them clearly, the soft grinding of their jaws as they chew, the occasional snort or low rumble of communication, the sound of their hooves on the soft earth as they shift position. These sounds create a rhythm, a pattern that I can use to time my movements. I'm close enough now to see individual details. The way the morning light catches the coarse hair of their coats, the alertness in their small, dark eyes, the constant movement of their ears as they monitor their surroundings for threats. These are not helpless creatures, they're survivors, adapted to this harsh environment through millions of years of evolution. The yearling moves away from its mother again, drawn by a patch of particularly green grass near the edge of the depression. This is my chance, but I need to be closer, need to be in position to strike before the young animal can retreat to the safety of the herd. I begin the final approach, my body dropping into the lowest crouch possible while still maintaining the ability to spring forward explosively. My belly nearly touches the ground as I move through the grass, each muscle fiber preparing for the tremendous effort that will be required. The weight of my body settles into my haunches, coiling like a spring under tension. The yearling is perhaps 10 yards away now, its back turned to me as it feeds. The mother is 15 yards beyond that, momentarily distracted by her own feeding. The bulls are at the far end of the depression, their attention focused on something in the distance. Perhaps they've caught the scent of another animal, or heard some sound that doesn't concern them but captures their interest. I pause, gathering myself for the strike. Every sense is heightened now, every nerve ending alive with anticipation. I can feel the texture of the earth beneath my paws, can hear the whisper of wind through the grass. can smell the complex mixture of scents that paint a detailed picture of my surroundings. The yearling takes another step away from its mother, and I know this is the moment. My muscles bunch, preparing for the explosive leap that will carry me across the remaining distance. My claws extend slightly, seeking purchase on the ground for the tremendous push-off that's about to come. But then the wind shifts, carrying my scent directly toward the herd. The yearling's head comes up instantly, nostrils flaring as it processes the alien smell. For a frozen moment, we stare at each other across the grass predator and prey, each recognizing the other for exactly what they are. The yearling's alarm call shatters the morning quiet, a high-pitched bellow that brings the entire herd to instant alertness. Heads come up, ears swivel in my direction, and suddenly I'm facing not one young bison, but 6 adult animals, all focused on the threat I represent. The mother moves first, positioning herself between me and her offspring with a speed that's surprising in such a large animal. The bulls thunder toward me, their massive heads lowered, horns aimed at my vulnerable flanks. The ground shakes under their hooves as they charge, and I realize that my opportunity has become a life-threatening situation. I spring sideways, using my superior agility to avoid the first bull's charge. His horns pass inches from my ribs, close enough that I can feel the heat from his body. The second bull is right behind him, and I have to leap backward to avoid being trampled by his massive hooves. The herd mills around me now, a moving wall of muscle and horn that offers no easy escape route. The yearling has retreated to the center of the group, protected by the bodies of the adults. My chance at an easy kill has evaporated, replaced by the immediate need to extract myself from this dangerous situation without injury. I begin to back away slowly, my body still coiled for action, but my movements clearly non-aggressive. The bison follow my retreat, snorting and stamping, making it clear that they're prepared to defend their territory and their young. But they're not pursuing with the intent to kill, they simply want me gone, want their herds safe from the threat I represent. Gradually, the distance between us increases. The bison slow their advance, recognizing that I'm no longer an immediate threat. The bulls continue to watch me carefully, their dark eyes tracking my movement, but they begin to relax slightly. The cows move closer to the yearling, surrounding it with a protective barrier of adult bodies. I retreat to the safety of the oak grove, my heart still racing from the encounter. The hunt was unsuccessful, but it wasn't a complete failure. I've learned something about this particular herd: their alertness, their defensive strategies, their willingness to protect their young. This information might prove valuable in future encounters. More importantly, I've reminded myself of the fundamental truth of predator life. Patience is more valuable than courage, and wisdom is more important than strength. The bison will be here for days, perhaps weeks. There will be other opportunities, other moments when the circumstances align more favorably. I settle into the shade of the oak trees, my body gradually releasing the tension of the failed hunt. The morning sun continues its climb, promising heat that will eventually drive all of us to seek shelter. But for now, I'm content to rest, to watch, to wait. The hunt continues, as it always has, as it always will, and next time, I'll be ready. The crushing canines strike. The afternoon sun hangs heavy in the sky, casting long shadows across the grassland. Hours have passed since my unsuccessful encounter with the bison herd, but patience has rewarded me with a new opportunity. From my resting place in the oak grove, I've been watching a lone ground sloth, making its way slowly across the open meadow, following a path that will bring it dangerously close to my concealed position. This creature is different from the bison: solitary, methodical, and while still formidable, it lacks the protective circle of its own kind. Ground sloths are massive animals, nearly as tall as I am when they rear up on their hind legs, with claws longer than my own sabers. But they're also predictable in their movements, focused on their constant search for food, and less naturally alert to the presence of predators. I watch as the sloth approaches, its massive head swaying from side to side as it searches for the tender shoots and leaves that make up its diet. The creature moves with the unhurried confidence of an animal that has few natural enemies. Those powerful claws can dig through the hardest soil, strip bark from trees, and deliver devastating defensive blows. But they're designed for digging and feeding, not for the lightning-quick responses that survival sometimes demands. The sloth's path will bring it within 20 feet of my position. This is closer than I dared hope. Close enough that I can strike before it has time to react. Close enough that my leap will carry me onto its back before those dangerous claws can be brought to bear. I begin to prepare my body for the attack, feeling the familiar tightening of muscles, the heightened awareness that comes with the proximity of a kill. My breathing becomes more controlled, each inhalation and exhalation timed to maintain the oxygen flow my muscles will need for the explosive effort ahead. My claws extend slightly, seeking purchase on the ground beneath me. The weight of my body settles into my haunches, every fiber of muscle coiling like springs under tremendous tension. The sloth is 15 feet away now, its massive form moving with the slow rhythm that characterizes its kind. I can see the texture of its coarse fur, can smell the green scent of the plants it has been eating. Its small eyes are focused on the ground ahead, searching for food, unaware that death is coiled in the shadows just yards away. 10 feet. The creature pauses, its head lifting slightly as it tests the air. For a moment, I think it might have caught my scent, might bolt or rear up into its defensive posture, but then it lowers its head again, apparently satisfied that no threat exists. It takes another step forward, bringing it into the perfect position for my strike. I explode from the shadows with all the power my body can generate. My hind legs drive me forward with tremendous force, my front paws extended to grip my target. The ground falls away beneath me as I sail through the air, every muscle in my body focused on the single objective of bringing down this massive prey. The sloth's head comes up at the sound of my movement, but it's too late. My front paws slam into its shoulders, my claws digging deep into the thick fur and muscle beneath. The impact drives the breath from the creature's lungs in a whoosh of expelled air, and we both go down in a tangle of limbs and claws. But the sloth is far from helpless. Even as we fall, its own claws are seeking me, trying to rake across my flanks and belly. I twist desperately, using my superior agility to avoid the worst of its defensive strikes. One claw catches my shoulder, tearing through fur and drawing blood, but the wound is shallow, more startling than dangerous. I fight to maintain my grip on the sloth's shoulders while positioning myself for the killing strike. This is the moment that my sabers were designed for, the precise instant when millions of years of evolution focus into a single, devastating action. I need to reach the creature's neck, need to drive my canines deep into the arteries that carry life to its brain. The sloth thrashes beneath me, its massive body bucking and rolling as it tries to dislodge me. Its strength is incredible, far greater than my own, but strength without speed is a limited advantage. I use my lighter weight and superior agility to stay on top, to maintain the position that will allow me to deliver the fatal bite. My opportunity comes when the sloth tries to roll onto its back, hoping to crush me beneath its weight. As it turns, its neck is exposed for just a moment, the thick fur parting to reveal the vulnerable flesh beneath. I don't hesitate. My head darts forward, jaws opening wide to accommodate the massive canines that are my primary weapon. The impact is everything I hoped for and more. My sabers slide through the thick fur and tough hide, like they were designed to do, finding the precise spot where the major arteries branch toward the brain. The sloth's struggles intensify for a moment, its body convulsing as it realizes what has happened. Then, gradually, the movements slow, the breathing becomes labored, and finally, the great creature is still. I maintain my grip for long moments after the sloth has stopped moving, my teeth still buried in its neck. This is partly caution. Wounded prey animals sometimes experience a final surge of strength that can be dangerous to a careless predator. But it's also ritual, a moment of respect for the life that has ended to sustain my own. The taste of blood fills my mouth, warm and metallic, carrying the essence of the life that has just departed. It's a taste that speaks of success, of survival, of the continuation of the ancient cycle that has sustained predators since the beginning of time. My body responds to this taste with a surge of satisfaction, a release of tension that I hadn't fully realized was there. Finally, I release my grip and step back to survey my kill. The ground sloth lies still in the afternoon sunlight, its massive body already beginning to cool. This creature will feed me for days, its rich meat providing the energy I need to maintain my territory, to defend my hunting grounds, to continue the endless cycle of survival. But first, I must perform the ritual of the first bite. This is more than mere feeding. It's a ceremony that connects me to every predator that has ever lived, a moment of acknowledgement between hunter and hunted. I lower my head to the sloth's flank, choosing a spot where the meat will be tender and rich, and take the first taste of my victory. The meat is everything I hoped it would be: rich, flavorful, dense with the nutrients my body craves. I eat slowly, savoring not just the taste but the knowledge that this kill represents. I've proven myself once again, demonstrated that I deserve my place in this harsh world, earned the right to continue my existence for another few days. As I feed, I remain alert to my surroundings. The scent of blood and fresh meat carries far on the afternoon breeze, and I know that other predators will be drawn to investigate. Scavengers will come first, the smaller carrion eaters who wait for opportunities like this. But they'll be followed by larger competitors, animals capable of driving me from my kill if I'm not careful. I eat my fill, consuming as much as my stomach can hold. The rest I'll need to protect, or cache, hiding it from other predators until I can return to feed again. This is the reality of predator life: feast or famine, with no guarantee of when the next successful hunt might occur. The afternoon shadows grow longer as I feed, and I know that evening is approaching. The cooler temperatures will bring other animals out to hunt and feed, increasing the likelihood of encounters with competitors. I need to decide quickly whether to defend this kill site or to abandon it in favor of a more secure location. The sloth's body is too large to move easily, too heavy for me to drag to a safer spot. If I want to protect this meat, I'll need to stay here to guard it against all comers. This means sleeping in the open, vulnerable to attack from pack hunters or larger predators who might see me as a threat to be eliminated. But the alternative, abandoning this much meat, is almost unthinkable. Successful hunts are too rare, too precious to waste on concerns about safety. I make my decision quickly, as predators must. I'll stay with the kill, at least for tonight. I'll defend what I've earned, protect what I've won through skill and courage. I drag the sloth's body to the shelter of a nearby boulder, a spot that offers some protection from the wind and concealment from casual observers. The effort leaves me breathing hard. The sloth's weight is tremendous, and moving it even a few yards requires significant energy. But the new position is more defensible, offering me clear sight lines in all directions. As the sun begins to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and red, I settle down beside my kill. My belly is full, my immediate needs satisfied, but my work is far from over. The night will bring new challenges, new threats to face and overcome. But for now, in this moment, I am content. I am fed. I am successful. I am alive. The first stars appear in the darkening sky as I begin my vigil. Somewhere in the distance, I hear the howl of wolves, the call of night hunters beginning their own search for prey. The ancient dance continues, predator and prey locked in their eternal struggle for survival. And I am part of that dance, a skilled participant in the most fundamental drama of life on Earth. Midday shade in the juniper copse, The sun has reached its highest point in the sky, transforming the landscape into a shimmering expanse of heat waves and drowsy warmth. After the intense excitement of the successful hunt, my body has settled into the slower rhythms of digestion and rest. I've moved from the exposed kill site to a small grove of juniper trees, their twisted branches providing blessed shade from the relentless afternoon sun. The meat from the ground sloth sits heavy and satisfying in my belly, a rich warmth that spreads through my entire body. This is the reward for the morning's patience, the payoff for the careful stalking and precise strike that brought down such formidable prey. My body is already beginning the process of converting that meat into the energy and strength I'll need for the days ahead. I've positioned myself in the deepest shade available, my back against the rough bark of the largest juniper. The tree's aromatic scent fills the air around me, a clean, sharp fragrance that helps mask my own scent from any potential threats. The ground beneath me is soft, with years of accumulated fallen needles, creating a comfortable resting spot that molds to the contours of my body. This is the time for grooming, for the careful maintenance that keeps my body in peak condition. I begin with my paws, using my rough tongue to clean the dried blood and dirt from between my toes. Each claw receives individual attention, my teeth carefully removing any debris that might have accumulated during the hunt. Clean claws are essential. They're my climbing tools, my weapons, and my primary means of gripping prey. My tongue works methodically across my shoulders and flanks, smoothing the fur that was ruffled during the struggle with the sloth. The repetitive action is soothing, almost meditative, helping my body transition from the high alertness of the hunt to the relaxed state needed for proper digestion. The taste of my own fur is familiar and comforting, carrying the sense of my territory, my recent activities, and my identity as a predator. I pay special attention to the shallow wound on my shoulder, where the sloth's claw caught me. The cut is minor, but needs to be kept clean to prevent infection. My saliva contains natural antibacterial properties, and the rough texture of my tongue helps remove any dirt or debris that might have gotten into the wound. The injury stings slightly as I clean it, but it's already beginning to heal. As I groom, I'm aware of the other sounds in the copse around me. The afternoon heat has driven many animals to seek shade, and I'm not alone in my choice of resting spot. Somewhere above me, a squirrel chatters irritably, probably disturbed by my presence but not threatened enough to leave its own shady perch. The sound is companionable rather than alarming, a reminder that not all animals in this landscape are either predators or prey. A few yards away, I can hear the gentle rustling of smaller creatures moving through the fallen needles, probably ground-dwelling birds or small mammals taking advantage of the cooler microclimate beneath the trees. These tiny animals are far below my notice as prey too small to provide significant nutrition, too quick to be worth the energy expenditure of hunting them. But their presence is reassuring, a sign that this grove is a haven for many species during the heat of the day. The sound of approaching footsteps makes me lift my head from my grooming. The stride is familiar, the weight distribution and rhythm immediately recognizable. One of my siblings is approaching, probably drawn by the scent of my successful hunt. I continue my grooming but remain alert, ready to defend my kill if necessary. The newcomer appears at the edge of the copse, younger brother, a magnificent specimen nearly as large as myself, but lacking the scars and experience that mark my face and shoulders. His approach is careful, respectful, acknowledging my right to the kill, while expressing his own hunger and hope for sharing. We regard each other for a long moment, a complex communication taking place without words. His posture is submissive but not servile, acknowledging my dominance while maintaining his own dignity. My response is measured, neither welcoming nor hostile, establishing the boundaries of our interaction. Family bonds among our kind are strong but complicated. We share territory, information, and sometimes prey, but we also compete for resources and status. My brother's presence now represents both companionship and potential threat. If he's hungry enough, If he perceives weakness in me, he might challenge my right to the kill. But the approach he takes is diplomatic rather than aggressive. He settles down just outside the shade of the juniper grove, positioning himself where he can observe me without appearing to threaten my resting spot. His message is clear. He's willing to wait, to see if I'm prepared to share, to accept whatever decision I make about the meat I've earned. I consider my options carefully. The sloth carcass is large enough to feed both of us, and having an ally nearby would provide additional protection against scavengers or competitors. But sharing also means less meat for me, shorter intervals between successful hunts, increased pressure to find prey again soon. My decision is influenced by more than just immediate hunger. Pack dynamics, family relationships, and long-term survival strategies all play a role. My brother has shared with me in the past, and I may need his cooperation in future hunts. The bonds between us are valuable, worth maintaining even at some cost to my immediate self-interest. I make a low chuffing sound, a vocalization that carries acceptance without enthusiasm. My brother's posture relaxes slightly, and he begins to move closer, but he approaches slowly, still acknowledging my dominance, still prepared to retreat if I change my mind. The afternoon passes in comfortable companionship. We don't groom each other. That level of intimacy is reserved for mating pairs or parents with young cubs. But we rest in proximity, each of us maintaining our own space while acknowledging the other's presence. The shade of the juniper grove accommodates us both, and the combined scent of two adult predators creates a more effective deterrent to potential threats. Occasionally, we communicate through soft vocalizations, sharing information about our morning activities, the locations of prey herds, the movements of competitors. These conversations are brief and practical, focused on the kind of intelligence that helps both of us survive in this challenging environment. The heat of the day peaks and then begins to wane, the sun starting its slow descent toward the western horizon. The air around us shimmers with warmth, creating a dreamlike quality that makes the distant landscape appear to dance and waver. Small insects buzz lazily among the juniper branches, their droning creating a peaceful soundtrack to our rest. As the afternoon progresses, I become aware of a subtle change in the atmosphere. The pressure seems to be dropping, and there's a faint scent of moisture in the air that wasn't there earlier. Somewhere to the west, beyond the visible horizon, storm clouds might be gathering. The prospect of rain brings both opportunity and danger. Fresh water for drinking, but also the possibility of flash floods in the normally dry creek beds. My brother seems to sense the atmospheric change as well. His head lifts periodically, testing the air, reading the same subtle signals that I'm processing. We might need to move before evening to find shelter that can protect us from a potential storm. But for now, the threat is distant, uncertain, not immediate enough to disturb our comfortable rest. The insects around us provide a constant, gentle soundtrack to the afternoon. The buzz of flies, the chirping of hidden crickets, the distant hum of bees working among the sparse flowers that bloom in the shade of the trees. These sounds create a peaceful backdrop that helps mask our presence from animals that might be listening for the approach of predators. As I rest, I reflect on the morning's success and the challenges that lie ahead. The meat from the sloth will sustain me for several days, but eventually I'll need to hunt again. The seasonal patterns are shifting, and I need to stay aware of how these changes might affect the behavior of my prey species. Some animals will begin their migration soon, following ancient routes to better grazing or breeding grounds. Others will start preparing for the harsh seasons ahead, building up fat reserves or seeking more secure shelter. My brother and I will need to coordinate our efforts, sharing information about prey movements and potential hunting opportunities. The bond between us is valuable, but it requires constant maintenance, constant negotiation about territories and resources. We're family, but we're also competitors, and that dual relationship requires careful management. The afternoon light begins to take on the golden quality that precedes evening. Soon, the nocturnal animals will begin to stir, and the day shift will give way to the night shift in the endless cycle of predator and prey. But for now, in this moment, I'm content to rest in the shade, my belly full, my body strong, my family bonds secure. The juniper grove provides more than just physical shelter. It offers a temporary respite from the constant vigilance that defines predator life. Here, surrounded by the familiar sense of home territory and the comforting presence of family, I can allow my guard to drop slightly, can rest in the knowledge that I'm exactly where I belong in this ancient, challenging world. Lone dire wolf at the kill site. The peaceful afternoon rest is shattered by a scent that makes every muscle in my body tense with alertness. The wind has shifted, carrying with it the unmistakable odor of dire wolf, not the distant pack scent I detected at the river this morning, but the immediate, concentrated smell of a single individual moving through my territory with purpose. My brother senses the change in my posture immediately. His own body coils into readiness, though he defers to my leadership in this situation. The kill site with the sloth carcass lies perhaps 50 yards from our resting spot in the juniper grove, and I can tell from the direction of the scent that the wolf is headed directly toward it. I rise slowly, my movements controlled and deliberate. Every sense is now focused on gathering information about this potential threat. The scent grows stronger, more defined, telling me details about the approaching animal. It's a male, large and mature, probably weighing nearly as much as I do. There's a musky undertone to his smell that speaks of confidence, of an animal accustomed to getting what it wants through force, if necessary. Moving carefully through the juniper branches, I position myself where I can observe the kill site, while remaining concealed. My brother follows, maintaining a respectful distance that acknowledges my primary claim to both the territory and the carcass. We settle into watching positions, our bodies low, our breathing controlled. The wolf appears at the edge of the clearing like a grey shadow materializing from the landscape itself. He's magnificent and terrifying, in equal measure a creature built for endurance and power, with massive jaws capable of crushing bone and an intelligence that rivals my own. His yellow eyes sweep the area methodically, taking in every detail of the scene before him. He approaches the sloth carcass cautiously, clearly aware that the kill is fresh and that the predator responsible might still be nearby. His nose works constantly, reading the complex story written in scent around the kill site. I know he can smell me, can detect my recent presence, but he can't pinpoint my exact location from scent alone. The wolf circles the carcass once, twice, his movements becoming bolder as he fails to locate immediate danger. He's hungry. I can see it in the way his ribs show slightly beneath his thick coat, in the focused intensity with which he regards the meat. This isn't a casual investigation. This is a desperate animal looking for his next meal. When he finally approaches the carcass directly, lowering his head to tear at the rich meat of the sloth's hindquarters, I know I have to make a decision. I can remain hidden, allow him to feed and hope he moves on quickly. Or I can reveal myself, assert my claim to the kill, and risk a confrontation with one of the most dangerous predators in this landscape. The choice is made for me when the wolf settles down beside the carcass, clearly intending to stay and feed at his leisure. His body language speaks of ownership, of an animal that has decided this meat now belongs to him. The casual way he begins to tear at the flesh, the relaxed posture of his shoulders, the territorial marking he performs on a nearby boulder, all of these signals tell me that he has no intention of leaving soon. I can't allow this challenge to go unanswered. To retreat now would be to surrender not just this kill, but my authority over this territory. Other predators would sense weakness, would begin to test my boundaries, would eventually drive me from the hunting grounds that have sustained my family for generations. I emerge from the juniper grove slowly, making enough noise to announce my presence without appearing to launch a surprise attack. The wolf's head comes up immediately, his yellow eyes locking onto mine across the clearing. For a moment, we simply stare at each other, each assessing the other's size, condition, and fighting capability. The wolf is larger than I expected, easily my equal in weight and possibly superior in raw strength. His coat is thick and healthy, suggesting he's been eating well despite his current hunger. Most importantly, his eyes show no trace of fear, no inclination to back down from a confrontation. This is not a young animal looking to avoid trouble. This is a mature predator defending what he considers to be his rightful claim. I advance slowly across the clearing, my body low but not submissive, my movements controlled but ready to explode into action if necessary. Every step is a calculated demonstration of my own power and confidence. My sabers catch the afternoon light, their ivory length a clear reminder of my primary weapons. The wolf rises to meet my advance, his own body language shifting from casual feeding posture to active threat display. His hackles rise, making him appear even larger than he already is. His lips pull back to reveal massive canine teeth, evolved for a different kind of killing than my own, but no less effective for their intended purpose. We begin to circle each other at a distance of perhaps 10 feet, each of us looking for weakness, for an opening, for some advantage that might tip the balance in our favor. The wolf's strategy becomes clear quickly. He wants to get close enough to use his superior jaw strength, to lock those massive teeth onto some part of my body, and use his weight to drag me down. My own approach is necessarily different. My sabers are designed for precision strikes rather than prolonged grappling. I need to keep my distance, to use my agility and speed, to dart in for quick attacks, while avoiding his attempts to close the distance between us. The standoff continues for long minutes, both of us too experienced to make careless moves. The wolf feints toward my left flank, testing my reactions, gauging my speed. I respond with a lightning-quick swipe of my front paw, claws extended, that passes inches from his muzzle. The message is clear: I'm fast enough to hurt him if he gets careless. Gradually, the nature of our confrontation begins to shift. What started as a challenge over food begins to feel more like a mutual assessment, a testing of boundaries rather than a fight to the death. Neither of us is desperate enough to risk serious injury over a single kill, no matter how valuable. The wolf takes a step back, then another. His posture remains alert and ready, but the immediate aggression begins to fade from his stance. He's not retreating into feeds, making a strategic decision to avoid unnecessary risk. There will be other opportunities, other carcasses, other chances to feed. I hold my ground as he withdraws, not pursuing but not relaxing either. The message needs to be clear. I'm prepared to fight if necessary, but I'm also willing to let him leave with his dignity intact. This kind of territorial negotiation is complex, requiring a balance between strength and wisdom. The wolf pauses at the edge of the clearing, turning back for one final assessment. His yellow eyes meet mine again, and I see something like respect in their depths. We're both apex predators, both survivors in a harsh world, both intelligent enough to recognize when discretion is the better part of valor. With a final look at the sloth carcass, a glance that promises he'll remember this location and this opportunity, the wolf disappears into the grassland as silently as he arrived. I watch until his grey form is completely lost among the tall grass, then continue watching for several more minutes to ensure he's truly gone. My brother emerges from the juniper grove, his own relief evident in the way his body relaxes. We approach the kill site together, checking for any damage the wolf might have done during his brief feeding. The loss is minimal, a few pounds of meat from the hindquarters, nothing that significantly diminishes the value of the kill. But the encounter has changed something in the dynamics of my territory. The wolf now knows about this location, knows about my hunting success, knows that I'm prepared to defend what's mine, but also that I'm reasonable in my approach to territorial disputes. This information will be processed, remembered, and factored into future decisions about where and when to hunt. I settle down beside the carcass, my adrenaline slowly fading as the immediate threat passes. The afternoon sun continues its descent toward the horizon, casting long shadows across the clearing. The peaceful atmosphere of the earlier rest period has been shattered, replaced by a heightened awareness of the constant competition that defines life in this ancient landscape. The encounter with the wolf serves as a reminder that success in hunting is only the first challenge. Defending that success, maintaining territory, and negotiating with competitors are equally important skills for survival. Every kill brings its own risks, its own challenges beyond the initial act of bringing down prey. As I begin to feed again, tearing strips of meat from the sloth's flank, I remain alert for any signs of the wolf's return or the approach of other scavengers. The meat tastes the same as before, rich and nourishing, but the context has changed. What was once a peaceful meal has become a defended resource, a prize that I must guard as carefully as I work to earn it. The sun sinks lower, painting the grassland in shades of gold and amber. Soon, the night hunters will begin to stir, and new challenges will emerge from the darkness. But for now, I've successfully defended my kill, maintained my territory, and demonstrated my willingness to fight for what I've earned. In this harsh world, that counts as victory. Cooling tar pits and hidden peril. The late afternoon sun casts long shadows across the landscape as I make my way toward the eastern edge of my territory. The encounter with the dire wolf has left me restless, eager to patrol my boundaries and reassert my presence in areas I haven't visited recently. The tar pits lie in this direction, those dark, sticky pools that dot this region like black mirrors reflecting the ancient sky. The scent reaches me long before the pits come into Viewa's sharp chemical smell that seems to cut through the normal organic fragrances of grass and earth. It's an odor that speaks of depth and age, of substances that have been trapped beneath the ground for countless seasons, now seeping slowly to the surface where they create these treacherous pools. As I approach the first of the pits, I slow my pace considerably. These places demand respect, careful attention, and a healthy understanding of their dangers. The black surface looks deceptively solid from a distance, like dark earth or still water. But I know better. I've seen too many animals trapped in these sticky depths, their struggles only serving to pull them deeper into the suffocating embrace of the tar. The largest pit spreads before me like a dark lake, perhaps 50 feet across, at its widest point. The surface ripples occasionally, not with the movement of water but with the slow, viscous motion of the tar itself. Bubbles rise from the depths periodically, releasing puffs of gas that add to the chemical complexity of the air. But it's movement at the far edge of the pit that captures my attention and makes me freeze in place. There, mired in the sticky black substance, is a ground sloth knot, unlike the one I successfully hunted earlier, but larger, older, and clearly in desperate trouble. The animal is trapped up to its belly in the tar, its massive forearms clawing frantically at the solid ground just beyond its reach. The more it struggles, the deeper it seems to sink, the sticky substance clinging to its fur and pulling it inexorably downward. Its eyes are wide with panic, its breathing labored from the exertion of its futile escape attempts. I approach cautiously, keeping well back from the edge of the pit. The ground around these places can be treacherous, seeming solid, but actually underlaid with pockets of tar that might give way without warning. My paws test each step carefully, feeling for the firm earth that will support my weight. The trapped sloth notices my presence, and its struggles intensify briefly, terror adding urgency to its already desperate situation. But then, as if recognizing the futility of panic, the creature seems to calm slightly. Its dark eyes fix on mine across the black expanse, and I see something there that might be resignation, or perhaps a simple acknowledgement of the inevitable. This is not prey that I can hunt, not meat that I can claim. The tar pit has already staked its claim, and any attempt on my part to approach close enough to attack would likely result in my own entrapment. The sloth's fate was sealed the moment it stepped onto what appeared to be solid ground, but was actually the deceptive surface of the pit. Yet I find myself unable to simply walk away. There's something mesmerizing about the scene, something that speaks to deeper truths about survival and death in this harsh landscape. The sloth is dying, slowly and inevitably, but it's also becoming part of something larger, something that will preserve its bones and possibly its story for ages beyond counting. I've heard the old stories from the elders of my kind, tales of bones found in these pits that tell of creatures from the distant past, animals whose shapes and sizes seem impossible, but whose remains prove their existence. The tar preserves everything it captures, creating a record of life that stretches back through time immemorial. As I watch, the sloth's struggles grow weaker. The tar has reached its chest now, and each breath seems more labored than the last. The creature's massive claws still scrape weakly at the ground, but the movements lack the desperate strength of earlier efforts. Time is running out, and both the sloth and I know it. The afternoon light catches the surface of the tar, creating an almost beautiful display of colors: deep blacks, shot through with browns and oranges, like a twisted reflection of the sunset sky. But this beauty is deceptive, hiding the deadly nature of the substance beneath. The tar doesn't distinguish between predator and prey, between the valuable and the worthless. It claims everything equally, without preference or mercy. A sound from behind me makes me turn quickly, every sense alert for potential danger. But it's only my brother, drawn perhaps by curiosity about my extended absence, or by some instinct that told him I'd found something worth investigating. He approaches cautiously, reading the tension in my posture, the focus of my attention. When he sees the trapped sloth, his reaction mirrors my own, a mixture of fascination and revulsion, attraction and fear. We stand together at the edge of the pit, two apex predators rendered helpless by the simple fact that our prey has been claimed by something even more inexorable than our own hunting skills. The sloth's breathing becomes shallower, more irregular. The tar has reached its neck now, and only its head remains above the black surface. Its eyes are still open, still aware, but there's a glassy quality to them that speaks of approaching death. The struggle is nearly over. My brother makes a soft sound, something between a growl and a whimper. Despite our predatory nature, despite our need to kill to survive, there's something about this slow, helpless death that disturbs us both. When we kill, it's quick and clean, a brief moment of violence followed by peace. This prolonged suffering serves no purpose we can understand. The sloth's head tilts back slightly, nostrils flaring as it struggles to draw breath through the thick, chemical-laden air. Each inhalation seems to require tremendous effort now, and the pauses between breaths grow longer. We're witnessing the final moments of a life, the end of a story that began when this creature was young and strong and full of the same will to survive that drives us all. Then, with a final, barely audible sigh, the sloth is still. Its eyes remain open, staring sightlessly at the sky above, but the spark of life has departed. The tar continues its slow, inexorable process, and gradually the creature's head disappears beneath the black surface, leaving only ripples to mark where it once struggled. The silence that follows is profound, broken only by the distant sounds of birds and the occasional bubble rising from the depths of the pit. My brother and I stand motionless for long minutes, both of us processing what we've witnessed, both of us understanding the lesson it contains. This is the reality of life in this ancient world. Death comes in many forms, not all of them involving the clean violence of predator and prey. Sometimes the landscape itself is the hunter, patient and implacable, claiming victims through deception rather than strength. The tar pits are reminders that survival requires not just courage and skill, but also wisdom and constant vigilance. I turn away from the pit finally, having learned what I came here to learn. The chemical smell of the tar follows us as we leave, clinging to our fur and serving as a reminder of what we've witnessed. This scent will fade, but the memory of the trapped sloth will remain, adding to the store of knowledge that helps define the boundaries between safe and dangerous in our world. The lesson is clear. and important. Not all prey is worth pursuing. Not all opportunities should be taken, and sometimes the wisest course of action is simply to walk away. The tar pits will continue to claim victims, to preserve their bones for future ages, to serve as both trap and museum in this harsh landscape. As we head back toward our territory's center, the sun continues its descent toward the western horizon. The day's heat is beginning to fade, and the first hints of evening coolness touch the air. Soon, the nocturnal hunters will begin to stir, and new dangers will emerge from the gathering darkness. But the image of the trapped sloth will stay with me, a reminder that in this world of constant peril, even the most powerful predators must remain humble before forces they cannot control. The tar pits have taught me respect for the hidden dangers that lurk beneath deceptive surfaces, and that knowledge may someday save my life. Evening sky turns amber. The sun hangs low on the western horizon now, transformed from the harsh white disk of midday into a softer, golden orb that paints the entire landscape in warm amber light. The day's heat is finally beginning to fade, replaced by the first gentle breezes that speak of approaching evening. This is the time of transition, when the rhythms of the day shift toward the different patterns of night. I've positioned myself on a rocky outcrop near the center of my territory, a vantage point that offers clear sight lines in all directions. The stone beneath me still holds warmth from the afternoon sun, creating a comfortable perch from which to observe the changing world around me. This elevated position is one of several strategic locations I've claimed throughout my domain, places that allow me to monitor the movements of both prey and competitors. The view from here encompasses nearly my entire territory, from the tar pits in the east, now shrouded in their own haze of chemical vapors, to the river bend in the north where the cottonwoods stand like sentinels along the water's edge. To the south, the grasslands roll away toward distant hills, while the west shows the familiar landmarks of oak groves and juniper copses that provide shelter during the heat of the day. The light has taken on that special quality that only comes in the hour before sunset, when everything seems to glow from within. The grass catches the amber illumination and holds it, creating a sea of golden waves that ripple in the gentle breeze. Individual trees stand out like sculptures against the sky, their leaves and branches outlined in fire. This is when the landscape reveals its true beauty, when the harsh realities of survival are temporarily softened by the magic of changing light. But even as I appreciate the aesthetic wonder of this moment, my predator's mind continues to catalogue the practical information that this elevated perspective provides. Movement in the grassland to the south catches my attention, a small herd of horses making their way toward the river for their evening drink. These aren't the massive draft animals that will be domesticated in future ages, but smaller, more agile creatures, perfectly adapted to this open landscape. Their movements are nervous, alert, heads constantly lifting to scan for danger as they move across the exposed ground. The horses represent potential prey, but they're challenging targets. Fast, alert, and capable of delivering devastating kicks with their hind legs, they require careful planning and perfect execution to hunt successfully. More often than not, they serve as early warning systems, their alarm calls alerting the entire area to the presence of predators. From the northwest comes the sound that I've been half expecting all afternoon, the distant howling of wolves. Not the lone male who challenged me at the kill site, but the coordinated calling of a full pack communicating across their territory. The sound carries clearly in the still air, a complex harmony of voices that speaks of organization, cooperation, and shared purpose. I listen carefully to the pack's vocalizations, reading the subtle differences in tone and timing that reveal information about their activities. This isn't the howling that accompanies a hunt, but rather the social calling that helps maintain contact between pack members spread across their hunting grounds. They're reorganizing after the day's activities, preparing for the coordinated evening hunt that makes them such formidable competitors. The wolves are perhaps 2 miles away, far enough that they pose no immediate threat, but close enough that our territories clearly overlap. This is information I need to remember, to factor into my own hunting plans. If the pack is active in this area, they might drive prey animals in my direction, or they might compete for the same hunting opportunities I'm planning to pursue. A different sound draws my attention toward the river, the trumpeting call of mastodons, moving through the cottonwood groves. These massive creatures are impressive but generally not practical prey for a solitary hunter like myself. Their size and strength make them nearly invulnerable to individual attack, and their social structure means that threatening one inevitably brings the wrath of the entire herd. But mastodons serve other purposes in the ecosystem. Their movements often disturb smaller animals, driving deer and ground birds from cover. Their feeding activities create clearings and pathways that other animals use for travel, and their presence can serve as a distraction, drawing the attention of other predators away from areas where I might be hunting. The temperature continues to drop as the sun sinks lower, and I can feel the day's warmth radiating up from the stone beneath me. This stored heat will dissipate quickly once full darkness falls, but for now it's a comfortable reminder of the day's activities. My body has processed the meat from the morning's successful hunt, converting it into the energy and strength I'll need for whatever challenges the night might bring. I begin my evening routine of territory assessment, a mental checklist that helps me prepare for the hours ahead. Water sources. The river is reliable, and several smaller streams provide backup options. Shelter. The cave system in the cliff face offers protection from weather and competitors, while various groves provide temporary rest stops. Prey. The deer herds are following their usual patterns. The ground sloths are active in the oak groves, and the bison remain in the southern grasslands. Threats and competitors have been more active today than usual. The dire wolf pack is operating nearby, and individual wolves have been probing my territory boundaries. The tar pits continue to pose their passive but deadly threat to unwary animals, and somewhere in the distance, other predators are making their own preparations for the night ahead. The light continues to change, shifting from gold to orange to the deeper red that precedes sunset. Shadows begin to stretch longer across the landscape, creating pools of darkness that will soon provide cover for the night's hunters. The first bats appear in the sky above me, their erratic flight patterns as they pursue insects creating a dance against the darkening heavens. Night sounds begin to replace day sounds in the symphony of the landscape. The songs of daytime birds fade, replaced by the calls of owls and the rustle of nocturnal creatures beginning to stir. Somewhere in the grass below, small mammals are emerging from their burrows, ready to begin their own evening foraging activities. I flex my muscles, feeling the power coiled in my shoulders and haunches. The rest of the afternoon has restored my energy and sharpened my senses. My wounds from the morning's hunt have already begun to heal, and my body feels strong and ready for action. The meat in my belly has been processed into fuel, and my body's systems are operating at peak efficiency. The mental mapping of my territory is complete, the assessment of threats and opportunities filed away for quick reference when needed. I know where the prey animals are likely to be found, where the water sources remain reliable, where shelter can be sought if weather or competitors make it necessary. As the sun touches the horizon, painting the sky in brilliant shades of orange and red, I prepare to descend from my rocky perch. The day shift is ending, and the night shift is about to begin. Different animals will emerge from hiding, different hunting opportunities will present themselves, and different challenges will test my skills and experience. But I'm ready for whatever the darkness might bring. I'm fed, rested, and alert. My territory is secure, my family bonds are strong, and my understanding of the local ecosystem is complete. I am a perfectly adapted predator in a world that rewards perfection with survival. The first stars begin to appear in the darkening sky as I make my way down from the rocky outcrop. The night is calling, and I answer that call with the confidence of an animal that knows its place in the ancient hierarchy of hunter and hunted. The evening hunt is about to begin, Night hunt under a full moon. Darkness has settled over the landscape like a familiar blanket, but this is not the impenetrable blackness that hampers the vision of day-dwelling creatures. Above me, a full moon bathes everything in silver light, transforming my world into a realm of sharp contrasts and mysterious shadows. This is my time, when my nocturnal adaptations give me every advantage over prey that struggles to navigate in the reduced light. My eyes have adjusted completely now, pupils dilated to capture every available photon of moonlight. The familiar landscape takes on a different character. In this ethereal illumination, trees become towering sentinels, casting long shadows, rocks transform into potential ambush points, and the grassland becomes a silver sea that ripples with each breath of wind. I move through this moonlit world with renewed confidence, my paws silent on the cool earth. The temperature has dropped significantly since sunset, bringing with it the crisp clarity that makes scents carry farther and sounds travel with crystalline precision. Every sense is heightened, operating at the peak efficiency that has allowed my kind to dominate the night hunting niche for countless generations. The scent that draws me forward carries on the cool night air mammoth. Not the massive adults that would challenge even a coordinated pack, but something smaller, younger, more vulnerable. My nostrils flare as I analyze the complex bouquet of information floating on the breeze. A juvenile, probably recently weaned, possibly separated from its family group. During the confusion of evening movement, I follow the scent trail with growing excitement, my body automatically shifting into hunting mode. Each step becomes more deliberate, more controlled. My massive frame seems to flow across the landscape like liquid shadow, utilizing every piece of cover, every fold in the terrain that might conceal my approach from watchful eyes. The trail leads me northwest, toward a shallow valley where a seasonal stream creates a natural gathering point for many species. The moonlight reveals the telltale signs of recent mammoth passage-deep footprints in the soft earth, broken vegetation where massive bodies pushed through low shrubs, and the distinctive musky scent growing stronger with each yard I advance. As I crest a low ridge overlooking the valley, I spot my quarry. The young mammoth stands alone near the stream, its trunk extended toward the water but its posture speaking of nervousness and uncertainty. Even in the moonlight, I can see that this is indeed a juvenile, perhaps 2 years old, large enough to provide substantial meat but not yet possessing the full defensive capabilities of an adult. But where is the family group? Young mammoths rarely wander far from their mothers, and the protective instincts of mammoth herds are legendary. I scan the surrounding area carefully, using both eyes and nose to search for signs of other mammoths nearby. The wind carries only the scent of the solitary juvenile, but that doesn't guarantee safety. Mammoth families can spread out over considerable distances, while maintaining contact through subsonic communications that travel far beyond my hearing range. I begin my descent into the valley, moving with the infinite patience that separates successful predators from dead ones. The slope is gentle but treacherous in the moonlight, dotted with loose stones that could betray my presence with a single careless step. Each foot placement requires careful consideration, each movement forward balanced against the risk of discovery. The young mammoth continues to drink, but its behavior shows increasing signs of anxiety. Its ears fan constantly, listening for sounds that might indicate the approach of danger or the return of its family. Its trunk samples the air repeatedly, testing for scents that might reveal threats hiding in the silver-washed darkness. 50 yards from my target, I pause behind a cluster of boulders to reassess the situation. The mammoth is perfectly positioned for an attack, isolated, distracted by its need for water, and far enough from obvious escape routes that I might have a chance of bringing it down before it can flee. But something about the scenario feels wrong, too convenient, too perfect. My instincts, honed by years of survival in this unforgiving landscape, whisper warnings that I can't quite articulate. Why would a young mammoth be alone? Where is the family group that should be protecting it? The questions multiply in my mind even as my body prepares for the strike that could provide meat for weeks. The answer comes as a deep rumble that seems to rise from the earth itself, the subsonic communication call of an adult mammoth, so low that I feel it more than hear it. The juvenile's head comes up immediately, trunk raised high to catch the scent and sound of the approaching family. What I had taken for an isolated, vulnerable target was actually bait in a trap I hadn't recognized. Within moments, the moonlit valley begins to fill with massive shadows as the mammoth family emerges from concealment in the timber along the stream's far bank. I count at least 6 adults, their tusks gleaming like ivory spears in the silver light, their massive bulk moving with surprising coordination and purpose. The matriarch leads them, her ancient eyes scanning the landscape with the wisdom of decades spent protecting her family from predators, exactly like me. My hunting opportunity has transformed into a life-threatening situation with breathtaking speed. The juvenile wasn't lost or separated, it was being used as a lure to draw potential threats into the open where the family could deal with them decisively. The intelligence and planning involved speak to cognitive abilities that rival my own, a reminder that mammoths are far more than simple prey animals. I begin to retreat immediately, abandoning any thought of pursuing the hunt further. The family group is moving to surround the valley, their massive forms positioning themselves to cut off escape routes, while the matriarch advances directly toward my hiding spot. They've detected my presence, either through scent or sound or some sense I don't fully understand, and they're responding with coordinated tactics that would challenge even a full pack of predators. My withdrawal is as careful as my approach had been, but now speed matters as much as stealth. The mammoths are communicating constantly through their subsonic calls, coordinating their movements in ways that create an ever-tightening net around my position. The rocky slope that had provided cover during my descent now becomes an obstacle course that I must navigate in darkness while under pressure from pursuers who know this terrain as well as I do. A trumpet call splits the night air, not subsonic this time, but a full-throated challenge that announces the family's intent to defend their territory and their young. The sound echoes off the valley walls, carrying news of the confrontation to every creature within miles. Other predators will hear that call and know that the mammoth family is alert and dangerous, that hunting opportunities in this area have evaporated for the night. I reach the ridgeline just as the first of the pursuing adults emerges from the valley below. The matriarch pauses at the bottom of the slope, her massive head silhouetted against the moonlit sky, her dark eyes fixed on my retreating form. For a moment, we regard each other across the distance, predator and protector, each acknowledging the other's capabilities and limitations. She doesn't pursue me beyond the valley's edge. Her responsibility is to her family, not to chase every potential threat to exhaustion. The message has been delivered clearly. This area belongs to the mammoth family, and they possess both the intelligence and the power to defend it against any challenger. I continue my retreat until I'm well beyond their territorial boundaries, my heart still racing from the encounter. The failed hunt serves as a valuable reminder that in this ancient world, the hunters can quickly become the hunted, that intelligence and planning exist on both sides of the predator-prey relationship. But the night is far from over, and other opportunities await. The moon continues its journey across the star-filled sky, casting its silver light on a landscape full of possibilities and dangers. I've learned something valuable about the mammoth family's tactics and territory, information that might prove useful in future encounters. As I pause to catch my breath and plan my next move, I catch a familiar scent on the night breeze of my sister, moving through her own hunting territory, perhaps a mile to the south. Her presence reminds me that I'm not alone in this challenging world, that family bonds provide both support and shared intelligence that can mean the difference between success and failure. The night hunt continues, as it has for countless generations, as it will for countless more. The moon watches over all of us, predator and prey alike ears. We play out our ancient roles in the eternal dance of survival. And I am exactly where I belong, a master of the darkness, perfectly adapted to thrive in this silver-washed world of shadow and moonlight. Clash. With a rival male, the peaceful rhythm of night hunting is shattered by a sound that makes every muscle in my body tense with recognition and alarm the territorial roar of another saber-toothed cat, deep and resonant, carrying across the moonlit landscape like a challenge written in sound. This is not the voice of a family member or a distant neighbor respecting established boundaries. This is the call of a rival, an intruder who has entered my domain with intent to claim what I have spent years defending. I respond immediately with my own roar, a thunderous declaration that echoes off the valley walls and announces my presence to every creature within miles. The sound emerges from deep in my chest, carrying with it all the authority and confidence of a predator who has never yielded his territory to any challenger. The message is unmistakable. I am here, I am strong, and I will defend what is mine. The answering roar comes from perhaps half a mile away, closer than I had initially estimated. The intruder is moving through the heart of my territory with brazen confidence, following scent trails that should have warned him away, ignoring the boundary markers that clearly establish my claim to this hunting ground. His voice carries the deep tones of a mature male, possibly as large as myself, certainly experienced enough to know exactly what he's doing. I begin moving toward the source of the challenge, my body shifting into the controlled aggression mode that has served me well in previous territorial disputes. Every sense is heightened beyond normal hunting alertness. My vision cuts through the moonlit darkness with razor clarity. My hearing separates individual sounds from the complex symphony of night noises. My nose analyzes every scent molecule for information about this approaching rival. The terrain between us is familiar ground, a series of low hills, dotted with oak groves and rocky outcrops that provide excellent ambush opportunities for a predator who knows how to use them. This familiarity is one of my greatest advantages. Every stone, every tree, every fold in the landscape is mapped in my memory. I know which approaches offer concealment and which leave an attacker exposed. As I advance, I continue to analyze the information carried on the night breeze. The rival's scent grows stronger, revealing details about his condition and recent activities. He's well fed, suggesting successful hunting in his previous territory. He's uninjured, indicating either superior fighting skills or careful selection of opponents. Most troubling, he shows no signs of the exhaustion that should accompany a long journey to new hunting grounds. The implications are disturbing. This isn't a young male seeking to establish his first territory, nor an aging predator driven from his original domain by stronger competitors. This is a mature, successful hunter who has chosen to expand his range at my expense, confident in his ability to take and hold whatever he decides to claim. Our paths converge at a rocky clearing near the center of my territory, a natural amphitheater surrounded by granite boulders that rises like standing stones in the moonlight. The location is symbolic as well as practical. This is the heart of my domain, the place where my family has denned for generations, where I took my first steps as a cub and learned the skills that have kept me alive. The rival emerges from the shadows at the far end of the clearing, and I see immediately that my assessment was correct. He's magnificent and dangerous in equal measure, easily my match in size and possibly my superior in raw physical power. His coat is thick and unmarked by serious scars, suggesting either exceptional skill in avoiding injury or limited experience in serious combat. His sabers catch the moonlight like curved daggers, their ivory length speaking of perfect health and prime condition. We begin to circle each other at a distance of perhaps 20 feet, each of us taking the measure of our opponent while looking for weakness or advantage. This initial phase of territorial combat is as much psychological as physical, a test of nerve and confidence that can determine the outcome before the first blow is struck. His movement is fluid and controlled, each step placed with the precision of a predator accustomed to success. His body language radiates confidence, bordering on arrogance, the attitude of an animal that has rarely been challenged and never been defeated. His dark eyes never leave mine, reading my posture and positioning just as I'm analyzing his. I maintain my own confident bearing, drawing on years of successful territorial defense to project the authority of established dominance. My scars tell the story of previous victories, proof that I've faced challenges before and emerged triumphant. My intimate knowledge of this terrain gives me tactical advantages that might tip the balance if the confrontation escalates to actual combat. The circling continues, a deadly dance under the watching moon. Neither of us wants to be the first to attack, to commit to the explosive violence that will leave one of us injured or dead. We're both intelligent enough to recognize that even a victorious fight carries significant risks, that injuries sustained in territorial disputes can lead to inability to hunt effectively. But sometimes violence becomes inevitable. The rival's next move makes it clear that he has no intention of withdrawing, no interest in negotiating boundaries or sharing territory. He steps closer, his body lowering into an aggressive crouch that speaks of imminent attack. His lips pull back to reveal those massive canines, and a low growl rumbles from deep in his chest. I respond with my own threat display, my hackles rising to make me appear larger and more formidable. My own sabers gleam in the moonlight as I draw back my lips, and my body coils into the fighting stance that has served me well in previous encounters. The muscles in my shoulders and haunches bunch with potential energy, ready to explode into action at the first sign of his attack. The strike comes with breathtaking speed. He launches himself across the space between us, front paws extended, aiming to knock me off balance and gain the dominant position that would allow him to bring his sabers to bear on my neck. But I'm ready for him, my own reflexes honed by years of combat experience. I sidestep at the last possible moment, his claws raking across my shoulder instead of finding the solid impact he sought. The pain is sharp but not disabling, and I use his own momentum against him, pivoting as he passes to rake my claws across his flank. The contact draws blood and elicits a snarl of pain and surprise. We separate quickly, each of us reassessing the other in light of this first exchange. He's fast and powerful, but perhaps not as experienced in actual combat as his confident approach had suggested. The surprise and pain in his eyes when my claws found their mark speak of an animal more accustomed to intimidating opponents into submission than to engaging in serious fights. For my part, I'm reminded that age and experience don't always compensate for youth and strength. His attack was faster than I had anticipated, and only my intimate knowledge of this fighting ground allowed me to avoid more serious injury. This confrontation is far from decided. We circle again, both of us now marked with blood, both understanding that the contest has moved beyond posturing into actual combat. The stakes are clear. Territory, hunting rights, and possibly life itself hang in the balance. Neither of us can afford to show weakness or uncertainty. His second attack is more calculated, a feint toward my right followed by a lightning-quick shift to my left. But I've seen this tactic before, and I'm ready for it. Instead of falling for the deception, I meet his charge head-on, our bodies colliding with tremendous force in the center of the clearing. The impact drives the breath from both our lungs, and we grapple desperately for advantage. His superior weight begins to tell as he attempts to bear me down to the ground where his sabers could find my throat. But my lower center of gravity and greater experience in close quarters combat allow me to maintain my footing. We break apart again, both breathing hard now, both marked with minor wounds that speak of the seriousness of our conflict. The moonlight reveals the determination in his eyes, but also something else, a flicker of uncertainty, perhaps even respect for my fighting ability. This is the moment when territorial disputes are often decided, when the psychology of dominance asserts itself over pure physical capability. I press my advantage, advancing steadily while maintaining my aggressive posture. My message is clear. I belong here. This is my domain, and I will fight to the death to defend it. The rival's response reveals the limits of his commitment to this territorial expansion. His retreat is gradual but unmistakable, his body language shifting from aggressive challenge to strategic withdrawal. He's strong and skilled, but he lacks the deep emotional investment in this particular territory that drives my defense. As he backs toward the edge of the clearing, his eyes never leaving mine, I make a decision that speaks to both wisdom and strength. Instead of pursuing him, instead of pressing the attack that might result in serious injury to both of us, I allow him to withdraw with his dignity intact. The message has been delivered and received. I am willing to fight for my territory. I possess the skills and experience to make such fights costly for any challenger, and I have the confidence to show mercy when victory is assured. These are the qualities that separate temporary dominance from lasting authority. The rival pauses at the edge of the clearing, his massive form silhouetted against the moonlit landscape. For a moment, our eyes meet across the space where we just fought, and I see acknowledgement there, perhaps even a grudging respect. Then he turns and disappears into the darkness, carrying with him the knowledge that this territory is defended by a worthy opponent. I remain in the clearing long after his scent has faded from the immediate area, allowing my body to process the adrenaline of combat while my mind catalogues the lessons learned from this encounter. The wounds on my shoulder and flank sting but are not serious, already beginning the healing process that will leave them as new scars to add to my collection. The night is far from over, but the territorial challenge has been met and overcome. My domain remains secure, my authority reinforced by successful defense against a formidable challenger. Tomorrow, the scent markers I'll leave throughout my territory will carry the additional authority of recent victory, warning other potential intruders that this ground is held by a predator, willing and able to defend it. As I make my way back toward the center of my territory, the moon continues its ancient journey across the star-filled sky. The night hunt can resume. The normal rhythms of predator life can continue, secure in the knowledge that my hunting grounds remain mine to command. First winter storm approaches. The morning air carries a subtle change that speaks to senses older than conscious thought, a shift in pressure and scent that announces the approach of weather far more significant than the brief showers that have punctuated the recent weeks. I lift my massive head from where I've been resting beside the remnants of yesterday's kill, nostrils flaring to analyze the complex message written in the atmospheric currents flowing across my territory. The scent of snow rides on the northwestern wind, faint but unmistakable, carrying with it the sharp cleanness of high mountain peaks and the promise of transformation. This isn't the gentle frost that has already begun touching the grass during the coldest pre-dawn hours. This is the first harbinger of winter's arrival, the advance guard of the season that will test every survival skill I've developed over the years. My whiskers, those sensitive instruments that detect the subtlest changes in air pressure and movement, register the dropping barometric pressure that precedes major weather systems. The sensation is almost like a gentle pulling, a subtle shift that makes my entire nervous system more alert, more aware of the changes beginning to cascade through the environment around me. The sky confirms what my other senses have already detected. The familiar blue dome that has dominated recent days is giving way to a thicker, more ominous canopy of clouds building along the northwestern horizon. These aren't the white, puffy formations that bring brief afternoon showers, but the heavy, grey-black masses that carry serious weather across vast distances. I've experienced enough seasonal transitions to recognize the signs and understand their implications. Winter in this ancient landscape isn't the gentle cooling of more temperate regions. It's a fundamental transformation that affects every aspect of survival, from hunting strategies to shelter requirements, to the basic challenge of maintaining body temperature in conditions that can kill the unprepared. The prey animals are already responding to the atmospheric changes, their behavior shifting in ways both subtle and obvious. In the distance, I can see a herd of horses moving with unusual urgency toward the sheltered valleys to the south, their normal grazing patterns abandoned in favor of strategic repositioning. Their instincts are telling them the same story my senses are. Reading serious weather is coming, and preparation is essential. Closer to my position, ground sloths are feeding with increased intensity, stripping bark and consuming vegetation with the focused determination of animals building energy reserves for harder times ahead. Their normally leisurely pace has accelerated, and I notice they're paying more attention to the locations of caves and other sheltered spots that might provide protection from storms. The smaller creatures are even more responsive to the changing conditions. Squirrels work frantically to expand their winter caches, and flocks of birds that have been residents all summer are beginning to show the restless behavior that precedes migration. The entire ecosystem is preparing for transformation, and my role as apex predator requires me to adapt my strategies accordingly. My own body is already beginning to respond to the seasonal signals. The fur along my flanks and shoulders is growing thicker, adding insulation that will be essential for maintaining core body temperature during the cold months ahead. My appetite has increased noticeably over the past weeks, driven by instincts that understand the need to build fat reserves that can sustain me through periods when hunting becomes more difficult. But physical preparation is only part of the challenge. Winter hunting requires different strategies, different prey selection, and different risk assessment than the relatively abundant times of warmer weather. The ground sloth I brought down yesterday represents not just a successful hunt, but strategic preparation for the leaner times ahead. I begin a systematic evaluation of my territory's winter resources, mentally cataloging the assets that will become crucial as conditions deteriorate. The cave system in the cliff face offers the best protection from severe weather, with deep chambers that maintain relatively stable temperatures and provide shelter from wind and precipitation. Several smaller caves and rock overhangs provide alternative shelter options, important backup locations if the primary den becomes compromised, or if I need refuge while hunting in distant parts of my territory. Water sources require special consideration during winter conditions. The main river will likely continue flowing even during severe cold, but the smaller streams and seasonal pools that provide convenient drinking spots during warmer weather may freeze solid. I'll need to adjust my hunting patterns to ensure access to reliable water sources, and I'll need to be prepared for the increased energy costs of traveling longer distances between water and prime hunting areas. The changing vegetation patterns will affect prey behavior in predictable ways. As surface plants die back or become less nutritious, herbivores will concentrate around areas where food remains available: sheltered valleys, south-facing slopes, and locations where persistent water sources support continued plant growth. These concentration areas become natural focal points for hunting activity, but they also increase competition with other predators facing the same seasonal pressures. My family relationships take on added importance during winter months. Cooperation becomes more valuable when resources are scarce and hunting opportunities are limited. The territorial boundaries that are strictly maintained during abundant times may become more fluid as we balance competition with mutual support. Sharing information about prey movements and weather conditions can mean the difference between successful adaptation and starvation. The approaching storm represents both immediate challenge and seasonal milestone. I'll need to find appropriate shelter, probably in the cave system, and wait out whatever weather the developing system brings. But more importantly, this first winter storm marks the beginning of the most challenging time of year, the season that separates successful predators from those who fail to adapt. I rise from my resting spot and begin moving toward the cave system, my body automatically shifting into the more deliberate movement patterns that conserve energy during difficult conditions. The wind is picking up now, carrying stronger scents of the approaching weather system, and rustling through the grassland with increasing intensity. The temperature is dropping noticeably, not just the gentle cooling that accompanies evening, but the more substantial decline that precedes significant weather events. My thicker winter coat provides adequate insulation for now, but I can feel the increased metabolic demands as my body works to maintain optimal operating temperature. As I move across my territory, I'm struck by how different the familiar landscape looks under the gathering storm clouds. The golden grassland that has characterized recent weeks is taking on grayer, more muted tones. The trees appear darker, more skeletal, as if already anticipating the bare branches of deep winter. Even the rocky outcrops seem more stark and forbidding under the changing light. Other predators are making their own preparations for the approaching storm. I catch the scent of wolves moving toward their den sites, and the calls of various bird species announce their own strategic retreats to sheltered locations. The entire predator community is responding to the same atmospheric signals, each species following instinctual patterns developed over countless generations of seasonal survival. The scent of my own family members drifts on the changing wind, carrying information about their locations and activities. My siblings are following their own preparation routines, securing their territories and ensuring access to appropriate shelter. Later, as the storm develops, we may find ourselves sharing space in the larger cave systems, temporarily setting aside territorial competition in favor of mutual survival. By the time I reach the cave entrance, the first snowflakes are beginning to fall, tiny crystalline messengers that confirm what my senses have been telling me all morning. The flakes are still light and sparse, but they carry the promise of much more substantial precipitation to come. The transformation has begun. I pause at the cave mouth, looking back across my territory one final time before the storm claims the landscape. The wind is stronger now, bending the grass and rattling through the oak leaves with increasing force. The sky has taken on the heavy, oppressive quality that precedes major weather events, and the air pressure continues to drop toward the critical threshold that will release the storm's full fury. Winter has arrived, not gradually, but with the sudden authority of a major weather system. The easy hunting of warmer weather is over, replaced by the complex challenges of cold weather survival. But I am ready for this transition, prepared by experience and adaptation to meet the seasonal tests that have shaped my species for countless generations. The cave welcomes me with its familiar scents and stable temperature, offering refuge from the storm while I wait for conditions to improve. Outside, the wind howls and the snow begins to fall in earnest, transforming my territory into a white wilderness that will demand new strategies and renewed vigilance. But for now, I am safe, warm, and ready to face whatever challenges winter may bring. Ice-crusted landscape and frozen prey. The storm has passed, leaving behind a world transformed beyond recognition. I emerge from the cave into a landscape of crystalline beauty and bitter challenge, where every familiar landmark has been buried under a blanket of snow so deep that it reaches past my belly. The morning sun reflects off the pristine surface with blinding intensity, creating a glare that forces me to squint as my eyes adjust to this new white world. My first steps into the snow are a revelation of the difficulties ahead. Each pore sinks deep into the soft powder, requiring tremendous energy to lift and place for the next step. The snow clings to my fur, forming ice crystals that will steal precious body heat if I allow them to accumulate. This isn't the light dusting that melts by midday. This is the kind of snowfall that reshapes the entire ecosystem for months to come. The cold is unlike anything I've experienced in recent memory, a penetrating chill that seems to seep through even my thick winter coat. Each breath sends small clouds of vapor streaming from my nostrils, and I can feel the moisture in my nose beginning to freeze during deeper inhalations. My whiskers collect ice crystals that tinkle like tiny bells when I shake my head. But within this harsh transformation lies opportunity for a predator wise enough to recognize it. The deep snow that hampers my movement creates even greater challenges for my prey species. many of whom lack the adaptations necessary for efficient travel through these conditions. The playing field has been leveled in ways that favor patience, strength, and strategic thinking over pure speed. I begin to move through my territory, following ridgelines and rocky areas where the wind has scoured away some of the snow accumulation. The familiar paths are obliterated, forcing me to navigate by landmarks and instinct rather than established trails. Every step requires careful consideration, as a misstep could send me plunging into a hidden ravine or unstable drift. The silence is profound, broken only by the crunch of snow under my paws, and the occasional crack of tree branches yielding to the weight of accumulated ice. The usual sounds of the landscape bird calls, rustling vegetation, the movement of small animals have been muffled or eliminated entirely by the white blanket covering everything. But this silence carries its own intelligence. Any sound that does penetrate the snow-deadened air becomes immediately significant. The distant lowing of cattle struggling through the drifts, the crack of breaking ice as some animal attempts to reach water beneath the frozen surface of streams. These sounds become beacons in the white wilderness, promising potential hunting opportunities for a predator capable of reaching them. My nose works constantly, testing the air for scents that might reveal the location of prey animals. The cold makes scent detection more difficult, but not impossible. The metallic smell of ice and snow dominates everything, but underneath I can detect traces of the musk that indicates large herbivores nearby. Following a scent trail in these conditions requires different techniques than summer tracking. The snow has buried all visual signs of passage, but the disturbance patterns where animals have moved through the drifts tell their own story. Deep furrows mark where heavy bodies have plowed through the powder. Compressed areas show where animals have rested or taken shelter from the wind. The trail I'm following leads toward a sheltered valley, where a grove of pine trees has provided some protection from the storm's full fury. As I approach the tree line, moving carefully to avoid triggering small avalanches from the snow-laden branches above, I catch sight of movement that makes me freeze in place. Musk oxen. 3 of them, huddled together beneath the protective canopy of the largest pine. These massive, shaggy creatures are perfectly adapted for cold weather survival, their thick coats and communal behavior allowing them to thrive in conditions that challenge most other species. But the deep snow has limited their mobility, making them more vulnerable than usual to a predator willing to expend the energy necessary to reach them. I study the group carefully, analyzing the tactical challenges they present. Musk oxen are formidable opponents, under any conditions powerful, well-armed with curved horns, and possessing the intelligence to coordinate their defense effectively. But the snow works in my favor here, limiting their ability to maneuver and potentially preventing them from forming their characteristic defensive circle. The smallest of the 3, probably a yearling, stands slightly apart from the others, focused on scraping snow away from the base of a tree to reach the vegetation beneath. This separation creates the opportunity I need, but reaching it will require a careful approach through snow that will telegraph my presence with every step. I begin a wide circle around the grove, staying well beyond their normal detection range, while I position myself for an approach from downwind. The snow makes stealth nearly impossible, but careful timing might allow me to get close enough for a successful strike before they can organize an effective defense. The cold is sapping my energy more quickly than usual, making speed essential once I commit to the attack. I can feel my muscles working harder to maintain body temperature, and I know that prolonged exposure to these conditions will drain my strength reserves rapidly. This hunt needs to succeed quickly, or I'll be forced to abandon it and seek shelter before hypothermia becomes a threat. My approach route takes me through a series of snow-covered boulders that provide some concealment while I close the distance to the grove. Each movement forward requires enormous effort as I break through the crusty surface layer into the softer snow beneath. My breathing becomes labored from the exertion, sending larger clouds of vapor into the frigid air. 20 yards from the grove, I pause to gather myself for the final rush. The musk oxen remain focused on their feeding, using their broad hooves to scrape away snow and their strong necks to push aside ice-crusted vegetation. The yearling has moved even further from its companions, drawn by a patch of exposed grass near the edge of the tree line. I launch myself forward with all the power my cold, stiffened muscles can generate. The snow explodes around me as I bound through the drifts, my body carving a furrow through the white powder. The sound of my approach is immediate and unmistakable. There's no stealth possible in these conditions, only speed and determination. The adult musk oxen react instantly, their massive heads coming up from their feeding to assess the threat bearing down on them. But the deep snow that hampers my movement creates even greater problems for their defensive positioning. Instead of forming their traditional protective circle, they find themselves struggling simply to turn and face the direction of attack. The yearling, startled by the sudden commotion and confused by the snow that limits its vision, hesitates for just a moment before attempting to flee toward its family group. That moment of uncertainty is all I need. My leap carries me through the last few yards of snow and onto the young musk ox before it can reach the safety of the adults. The impact drives both of us down into the snow, and for a crucial moment, we're both disoriented by the soft, confusing environment. But my predator instincts assert themselves quickly, and I manage to maintain my grip on the yearling's thick neck while positioning my sabers for the killing strike. The adults charge toward us, their hooves throwing up clouds of snow as they plow through the drifts, with determination that overrides the difficulties of movement. But the distance and the snow work in my favor, giving me the precious seconds I need to complete the kill before they can reach us. My sabers find their mark with the precision that millions of years of evolution have perfected. The yearling's struggles cease quickly, and I'm left with the immediate challenge of defending my kill against the approaching adults while managing my own energy expenditure in these harsh conditions. But the adults' charge loses momentum as they reach the kill site, their defensive instincts satisfied by the removal of the immediate threat to their family group. They circle at a safe distance, snorting and stamping, but making no attempt to drive me away from what is now clearly my prize. The hunt has been successful, but now the real work begins. In these conditions, preserving and protecting meat becomes even more critical than usual. The cold will help preserve the carcass, but it will also attract other predators facing the same seasonal challenges I am. And the energy cost of defending a kill site in deep snow could quickly outweigh the nutritional benefits of the meat itself. I begin the process of moving portions of the carcass to more defensible locations, using natural features like rock overhangs and dense thickets to create caches that can be protected more easily than the exposed kill site. The snow works both for and against me in this effort. It helps preserve the meat and provides natural refrigeration, but it also makes transportation incredibly energy-intensive. As I work, I'm acutely aware of how the winter landscape has changed all the fundamental equations of predator life. Hunting requires more energy, preservation requires different strategies, and simply staying warm becomes a constant background challenge that affects every decision. But successful adaptation to these conditions is what separates survivors from casualties in the harsh mathematics of seasonal change. The winter hunt continues, but under rules that test every survival skill I've developed over the years. The white world around me is beautiful and deadly in equal measure, offering opportunities to those wise enough to recognize them while punishing any mistake with consequences that could prove fatal. Shelter in a lava tube cave. The successful musk ox hunt has provided crucial nutrition, but the energy cost of hunting and defending the kill in deep snow has left me more exhausted than any summer hunt. The winter landscape demands not just strength and skill, but also strategic wisdom about when to expend energy and when to conserve it. As the short winter day begins to fade, I make the crucial decision to seek better shelter than the exposed cave system I've been using. The lava tube system I'm approaching represents one of the hidden advantages of this territory, a geological feature formed ages ago, when volcanic activity shaped this landscape into the hunting grounds I now call home. These natural tunnels, carved by flowing molten rock in the distant past, offer protection that surpasses anything available in ordinary caves or surface shelters. The entrance to the main tube is partially concealed by a tumble of boulders and snow-laden shrubs, creating a natural camouflage that helps hide this valuable resource from competitors. I've used this shelter system before during severe weather, but never with the deep appreciation I feel now for its advantages during truly challenging conditions. As I squeeze through the narrow entrance, the immediate relief from the wind and cold is profound. The temperature inside the tube is dramatically warmer than the surface conditions, though still well below what I would consider comfortable. More importantly, the air is still and dry, free from the moisture-laden wind that steals body heat with ruthless efficiency. The tube stretches into darkness ahead of me, its walls smooth and curved from their formation by ancient lava flows. The floor is covered with centuries of accumulated debris leaves, small bones, and the detritus carried in by countless animals who have used this shelter over the years. But the underlying surface is relatively level, providing a stable foundation for extended rest. I move deeper into the tube system, following passages that branch and interconnect in a complex network that extends far beneath the surface landscape. My night vision serves me well here, allowing me to navigate by the faint light that filters in from various entrances and ventilation shafts scattered throughout the system. The mapping of this underground terrain has taken years of careful exploration. Some passages dead-end in chambers barely large enough for me to turn around. Others open into vast rooms where the ceiling disappears into blackness above. A few connect to underground streams that provide reliable water sources, even during the harshest surface conditions. I choose a chamber perhaps 100 yards from the main entrance, a room large enough for comfortable movement, but small enough to retain body heat effectively. The walls here show the classic rope-like texture of Pahoeho lava, frozen in the flowing patterns that marked their creation. The geological history written in these stone formations speaks of violent birth, followed by millions of years of gradual cooling and stability. The floor of my chosen chamber is carpeted with soft material, mostly decomposed organic matter that has accumulated over the centuries, creating a natural bedding that provides both comfort and insulation. I arrange this material into a shallow depression that will help contain my body heat during the long rest period ahead. But I'm not alone in this underground refuge. The scent patterns throughout the tube system tell stories of other inhabitants, both temporary and permanent. Field mice have established extensive burrow networks in the softer floor material. Bats roost in some of the higher chambers, their presence revealed by the accumulated guano that enriches the soil beneath their roosting sites. More significantly, I detect the relatively fresh scent of my sister, indicating that she too has sought shelter in this tube system recently. The overlapping use of these caves by family members represents a form of cooperation that becomes more important during challenging seasons. We may maintain separate territories on the surface, but underground resources are often shared when survival conditions demand it. The acoustic properties of the tube system create an interesting communication network. Sounds travel through the connected passages in ways that allow family members to maintain contact, even when separated by significant distances underground. A soft chuff echoing through the tunnels might indicate the location of a sibling, while different vocal patterns can communicate warnings about surface conditions or threats. I settle into the soft nest I've prepared, feeling my body begin to relax for the first time since the storm began. The constant energy expenditure required to maintain body temperature in the harsh surface conditions had been draining my reserves more rapidly than I realized. Here, in the stable microclimate of the lava tube, those energy demands drop dramatically. The warmth begins to return to my extremities as my circulatory system responds to the improved conditions. My paws, which had been growing numb from contact with snow and ice, regain full sensation. The ice crystals that had formed in my whiskers melt away, allowing these sensitive instruments to function properly once again. As I rest, I use the time to groom away the accumulation of ice and snow that had clung to my fur during the day's hunting activities. This maintenance is crucial for maintaining the insulating properties of my winter coat. Matted or ice-laden fur loses much of its ability to trap warm air, compromising the thermal protection that makes survival possible in these conditions. The grooming process also serves a psychological function, helping me transition from the high alertness required for surface survival to the more relaxed state, appropriate for extended rest. The repetitive motion of tongue against fur is soothing, almost meditative, allowing my nervous system to process the stress and exertion of the day's challenges. From deeper in the tube system comes a soft sound that makes me pause in my grooming, the gentle chuffing vocalization that my sister uses to announce her presence without startling other family members. She's deeper in the cave system, probably in one of the larger chambers that she prefers for extended stays. I respond with my own soft call, a low rumble that carries through the connecting passages to let her know I'm here and settled safely. The exchange continues for a few minutes, a conversation in the simple language of our kind that communicates basic information about our respective conditions and locations. This underground communication network has served our family well over the years. During severe weather, when surface travel becomes dangerous or impossible, we can maintain contact and coordinate our activities through the tube system. Young family members learning to hunt can be guided to safety through vocal signals that carry through the tunnels. The chamber I've chosen offers multiple exit routes, an important consideration for any predator selecting a resting spot. The main passage leads back toward the entrance I used, but smaller openings connect to alternative routes that emerge at different points on the surface. This redundancy ensures that I won't be trapped underground if one exit becomes blocked or threatened. As the hours pass, I become increasingly aware of how the tube system affects the normal rhythms of day and night. The stable darkness and consistent temperature create an environment where the usual temporal cues are absent. Without the changing light patterns and temperature cycles of surface life, time seems to flow differently here. But this temporal disconnection can be valuable during harsh weather periods, when surface conditions make normal hunting and territorial activities impossible. The cave environment allows for extended rest periods that help conserve energy while waiting for conditions to improve. Sleep cycles can extend beyond their normal duration without the disruption of changing weather or the pressure of immediate survival needs. The soft sounds of other life forms in the tube system create a gentle background soundtrack to my rest. The scurrying of small rodents in their burrow networks, the occasional flutter of bat wings in distant chambers, the drip of water from condensation points where humidity levels create tiny precipitation events in the cave's microclimate. These sounds are comforting rather than alarming, representing the normal activity patterns of creatures that share this underground refuge. Their presence indicates that the cave system is healthy and stable, free from the toxic gases or unstable conditions that might make it dangerous for extended occupation. As my body temperature stabilizes and my energy reserves begin to rebuild, I reflect on the wisdom of maintaining knowledge of multiple shelter systems throughout my territory. Surface caves, rock overhangs, dense thickets, and underground systems like this lava tube each offer different advantages depending on weather conditions and seasonal requirements. The lava tube represents the most sophisticated shelter option available, providing protection from the most extreme conditions, while offering the space and resources necessary for extended occupation. But it also requires the most energy to reach and navigate, making it a strategic choice rather than a routine option. My breathing deepens as true rest begins to take hold, my body finally able to shift from the constant vigilance required for surface survival to the deeper relaxation possible in this secure environment. The stable temperature and complete protection from wind and precipitation allow my metabolism to slow to more efficient levels. Outside, the winter landscape continues its harsh dominion, over the surface world. But here, in the ancient shelter, carved by volcanic forces millions of years ago, I rest in comfort and security, my body rebuilding its strength for whatever challenges tomorrow might bring. The darkness is complete and peaceful, broken only by the soft sounds of underground life and the distant whisper of air movement through the connected passages. This is sanctuary in its purest form, a refuge that has sheltered countless generations of my kind through the harshest seasons this landscape can produce. Encounter with early humans around a fire. The morning brings clearer skies and the promise of improving hunting conditions, though the snow remains deep and challenging throughout my territory. I emerge from the lava tube, refreshed and ready to resume the constant search for food that defines winter survival. The cold is still intense, but the absence of wind makes movement much more manageable than during the height of the storm. As I begin my patrol of the territory's northern boundaries, following ridgelines where the snow is less prohibitive, my attention is captured by something entirely unprecedented in my experience. From a sheltered valley, perhaps half a mile away, a thin column of smoke rises into the still morning air, too straight and concentrated to be the result of lightning or any other natural phenomenon. The sight stops me in my tracks, every sense suddenly focused on this anomaly that speaks of intelligence and intention rather than the random processes of the natural world. Smoke means fire, and fire in this landscape usually means danger. The flash burns that sweep across dry grassland, the lightning strikes that ignite forest blazes, the volcanic activity that occasionally reminds us of the violent forces beneath the Earth's surface. But this smoke is different. It rises steadily from a fixed location, showing none of the spreading chaos that characterizes wildfire. Its color is lighter, almost white, suggesting wood or other organic matter burning in a controlled fashion rather than the darker, more acrid smoke of uncontrolled combustion. My curiosity wars with my caution as I consider whether to investigate this mysterious phenomenon. Every predator instinct I possess warns against approaching unknown dangers, particularly those that might involve fire. But my intelligence demands answers to questions that have never been posed before in my experience. I begin a careful approach, using every available piece of cover as I work my way down the valley toward the source of the smoke. The snow makes stealth nearly impossible, but I'm far enough away that the sound of my movement shouldn't carry to whatever might be creating this strange sight. As I draw closer, new sensory information begins to paint a picture that challenges everything I thought I knew about my world. The smell that drifts on the morning air is unlike anything in my experience, just burning wood, but something else, something organic, but alien. There's meat in that scent mixture, but it's different from the natural smell of carrion or fresh kills. More disturbing are the sounds that begin to reach me as I close the distance. Vocalizations that clearly indicate communication but follow patterns completely foreign to any animal language I know. The sounds are complex, varied, clearly intentional, but they don't match the vocal patterns of any creature in my extensive mental catalogue of territorial inhabitants. When I finally reach a position where I can observe the source of the smoke, the sight that greets me fundamentally alters my understanding of what kinds of beings share this ancient landscape. Around a carefully constructed fire, a group of creatures unlike any I've ever encountered are engaged in activities that speak of intelligence and cooperation on a level that rivals my own. They stand upright on two legs, a posture that immediately sets them apart from every other animal I know. Their bodies are relatively small, lacking the massive strength that characterizes the successful predators of this world, but their movements are coordinated and purposeful in ways that suggest sophisticated thinking abilities. Most remarkably, these creatures appear to be controlling the fire rather than fleeing from it. They feed it with deliberately chosen pieces of wood, adjust its configuration with tools that extend their reach, and use its heat and light for purposes that seem to involve food preparation and social interaction. I count 5 of them, 3 adults, and 2 smaller individuals that are clearly young, but mobile and active in the group's activities. They're covered in what appears to be fur from other animals, arranged in ways that suggest intentional modification rather than natural pelts. This use of other creatures' adaptations to enhance their own survival capabilities represents a form of tool use more sophisticated than anything I've witnessed. The tools themselves are fascinating and disturbing in equal measure. Sharp-pointed implements that gleam with an unnatural consistency, clearly crafted rather than naturally occurring. These objects are clearly weapons, designed with the same lethal intent as my own sabers, but created through intelligence rather than evolution. One of the adults tends to meat that's been positioned over the fire, turning it periodically and apparently using the flames to change its properties in some deliberate way. The smell of this cooking process is what I detected earlier familiar in its basic animal protein content, but transformed by the fire into something entirely new. The social dynamics of the group are complex and clearly structured. The adults coordinate their activities through constant communication, their vocalizations carrying emotional content that suggests relationships and hierarchies. The young ones learn through observation and participation, receiving guidance and correction in ways that mirror the teaching behaviors I recognize from my own family interactions. But it's their awareness of their environment that truly captures my attention and raises my assessment of their capabilities. Despite being engaged in various activities around the fire, they're clearly monitoring their surroundings with the vigilance of creatures who understand they exist in a dangerous world. Their positioning allows them to watch multiple approach routes, and I notice that the weapons are always within easy reach. One of the adults suddenly freezes, his head turning in my direction with an alertness that suggests he's detected some sign of my presence. His posture shifts immediately from relaxed activity to focused attention, and his hand moves toward one of the pointed weapons with smooth, practiced efficiency. The others respond instantly to his alarm, their own bodies shifting into positions that suggest defensive coordination. The young ones move toward the center of the group, while the adults position themselves between the perceived threat and their offspring. The behavior is exactly what I would expect from any intelligent species protecting its family group. I remain perfectly still, hoping that my concealment is adequate to avoid triggering a more aggressive response. These creatures may be small relative to me, but their obvious intelligence and tool use capabilities make them potentially dangerous in ways I can't fully predict. The pointed weapons could certainly cause serious injury if wielded with accuracy and determination. The adult who first detected my presence continues to scan the area where I'm hidden, his eyes moving in patterns that suggest systematic search techniques rather than random looking. His companions maintain their defensive positions, while clearly relying on his superior detection abilities to identify the nature and location of the threat. After several long minutes of tense surveillance, the group begins to relax slightly, though they remain more alert than they were before the alarm. The adult who spotted me continues occasional glances in my direction, clearly not entirely convinced that the danger has passed, but apparently deciding that the threat is not immediate enough to require evacuation. I use this partial relaxation to begin a slow, careful withdrawal from my observation position. The encounter has provided far more information than I was prepared to process, and I need time and distance to consider the implications of what I've witnessed. As I retreat through the snow-covered landscape, my mind struggles to categorize these strange creatures and their relationship to the ecosystem I thought I understood completely. They're clearly intelligent, clearly capable of complex tool use and social cooperation, but they're also physically vulnerable, dependent on their fire and weapons for protection against the natural dangers that surround them. They represent something entirely new in my experience: creatures that survive through intelligence and cooperation rather than physical dominance, beings that modify their environment rather than simply adapting to it. The implications for my own survival strategies are unclear, but the encounter has opened questions about territorial boundaries and resource competition that I've never had to consider before. The smoke continues to rise behind me as I put distance between myself and these mysterious beings. They may be temporary visitors to my territory, or they may represent a permanent new element in the complex ecosystem that defines my hunting grounds. Either way, they've introduced variables into my survival calculations that will require careful observation and strategic thinking to address properly. The ancient landscape that has been my world suddenly seems larger and more complex, inhabited by forms of intelligence that challenge my understanding of what it means to be a successful predator in this harsh but beautiful world. Spring thaw and flooded rivers. The deep winter has held the landscape in its icy grip for months, but now the first subtle signs of seasonal change begin to whisper through the frozen world around me. The sun climbs higher in the sky each day, staying longer above the horizon and carrying with it a warmth that speaks of transformation to come. The snow that has defined my existence for so long begins to show the first signs of the great melting that will reshape everything once again. The initial changes are almost imperceptibly a slight softening of the snow's surface during the warmest part of each day, tiny rivulets of meltwater that appear and disappear as temperatures fluctuate around the freezing point. But these small signs carry the promise of dramatic transformation, and my body responds to them with an anticipation that runs deeper than conscious thought. My winter coat, so essential for survival during the harsh months, begins to feel uncomfortably warm during midday periods. The thick underlay that trapped body heat so efficiently in bitter cold now seems to trap too much heat as the sun grows stronger. I find myself seeking shade during the warmest hours, my body beginning the gradual process of adaptation to the changing season. The sounds of winter are beginning to change as well. The profound silence that characterized the deep cold periods gives way to new voices: the drip of meltwater from tree branches, the crack and groan of ice under stress, the tentative calls of birds that have survived the harsh season and now sense the approaching abundance of spring. But it's the dramatic transformation of the river system that truly announces winter's end. What began as gentle melting in the high elevations becomes a torrent of change as warming temperatures release the vast quantities of water that have been locked in ice and snow for months. The quiet streams that provided reliable but limited water sources during winter become raging torrents that reshape the entire landscape. I'm awakened one morning by a sound unlike any I've heard during the winter months, a deep, continuous rumble that seems to emerge from the earth itself. Rising from my shelter in the lava tube system, I emerge to find the world transformed overnight by the power of rushing water. The main river, which had been a manageable waterway bordered by ice shelves and snowbanks, has become a chocolate-brown monster, carrying the debris of an entire watershed toward the distant sea. Uprooted trees spin in the current like twigs, and boulders that have rested in the same positions for generations tumble along the bottom with grinding sounds that carry for miles. The smaller streams and seasonal watercourses that cross my territory have been transformed into deadly torrents, cutting new channels and flooding areas that have been dry land throughout my entire life. The familiar geography of my hunting grounds has been rewritten by the unstoppable force of spring runoff. But with this chaos comes opportunity. The flooding has disrupted the winter refuges of many prey species, driving them from sheltered valleys onto higher ground, where they become more vulnerable to predation. Animals that have grown weak during the harsh winter months now face the additional stress of relocating to unfamiliar territory, making them easier targets for a predator wise enough to position himself along their likely migration routes. I'm moving carefully along a ridge that overlooks one of these new flood channels when I hear a sound that stops me immediately: the distress call of a young sabertooth, high-pitched and urgent, carrying the unmistakable note of panic that indicates immediate danger. The sound comes from the direction of what used to be a gentle creek, but is now a raging torrent, perhaps 30 feet wide. Scanning the water, I spot the source of the distress call: my sister's youngest cub, barely 6 months old, clinging desperately to a partially submerged log as the current attempts to drag it toward more dangerous rapids downstream. The cub must have been exploring near what it thought was safe water when the flood surge arrived with the sudden violence that characterizes spring breakup. Now it's trapped on debris that could break apart at any moment, too young and inexperienced to attempt swimming in such dangerous conditions, too frightened to think clearly about escape options. My sister appears on the opposite bank, her own distress evident in her posture and vocalizations. She paces frantically along the water's edge, clearly desperate to help her offspring, but recognizing the futility of attempting to cross the torrent herself. The current is too strong, the water too cold, the debris too dangerous for even an adult to navigate safely. The situation requires immediate action, but careful planning. The cub's grip on the log is weakening with each passing moment, and the debris is drifting steadily toward a section of rapids that would be fatal for any creature caught in their violence. But a reckless rescue attempt could easily result in 2 deaths instead of 1. I begin moving downstream along my side of the flood channel, searching for a point where the geography might offer some advantage. The water is too wide and violent for a direct swimming approach, but there might be other options if I can position myself correctly relative to the current and the drifting debris. A fallen tree spanning most of the channel offers the possibility I'm looking for. The trunk is partially submerged and undoubtedly slippery, but it extends far enough into the water that I might be able to reach the cub if I can time the approach correctly and maintain my footing on the unstable surface. I call out to the cub, using the low vocalizations that our kind employs to communicate reassurance and direction. The young animal's head turns toward me, its eyes wide with fear, but showing the intelligence necessary to understand that help is being attempted. This cognitive connection is crucial. The rescue will require cooperation from the victim as well as courage from the rescuer. Moving carefully onto the fallen tree, I feel immediately how treacherous the footing is. The bark is slick with ice and spray from the torrent, and the trunk shifts slightly under my weight as the current pushes against it. Each step must be placed with absolute precision to avoid losing my balance and being swept into the deadly water. The cub drifts closer, the log it's clinging to rotating in the current and bringing it within range of my position, if I can extend myself far enough. But reaching the necessary distance will require me to venture onto the most unstable section of the fallen tree, where a single misstep would send me into water that shows no mercy to any creature caught in its grip. I lower myself as much as possible, distributing my weight along the trunk while extending one massive paw toward the approaching debris. The cub understands what I'm attempting and shifts its position on the log, moving as close to my reach as possible while maintaining its precarious grip. The moment of contact is brief but successful. My claws find purchase in the cub's thick fur, and I'm able to lift it from the log just as the debris spins away into the more dangerous sections of the flood. But now I face the challenge of retreating along the slippery tree trunk while carrying the additional weight and dealing with the cub's panicked struggles. The journey back to solid ground seems to take forever, each step requiring absolute concentration to maintain balance, while the rescued cub gradually calms in my grip. My sister's calls from the opposite bank shift from distress to encouragement, her vocalizations helping to guide my movements and reassure her offspring. When I finally reach the safety of solid ground, setting the cub down on firm earth away from the dangerous water, the relief is overwhelming. The young animal is cold and frightened but uninjured, and it immediately begins the grooming behaviors that help process trauma and restore normal psychological function. My sister's gratitude is evident in her posture and vocalizations across the water, though the flood still separates us physically. The rescue has strengthened family bonds that will prove valuable throughout the challenges ahead, demonstrating once again that cooperation and mutual support are essential survival strategies in this unpredictable world. The spring flood continues its work of transformation around us, reshaping familiar landscapes and creating new challenges that will define the coming season. But it has also provided an opportunity to demonstrate the values that make family groups stronger than individual predator courage, intelligence, and the willingness to risk personal safety for the welfare of others. As the water levels begin to recede in the days that follow, revealing a landscape altered by the power of the spring thaw, I reflect on the lessons learned from this dramatic rescue. The changing seasons bring not just new hunting opportunities and environmental challenges, but also moments that test the bonds that hold families together and define what it means to survive as part of something larger than oneself. Courtship on the blooming plateau. The landscape has awakened from winter's grip with an explosion of life and color that transforms my familiar territory into something almost magical. The spring floods have receded, leaving behind rich deposits of fertile soil that nourish a spectacular display of wildflowers across the elevated plateau that forms the heart of my hunting grounds. The air is thick with the intoxicating scents of blooming sage, lupine, and countless other flowering plants that paint the grassland in brilliant purples, yellows, and reds. This is the season of renewal, when the harsh survival challenges of winter give way to abundance, and the ancient rhythms of reproduction assert themselves with irresistible force. My body responds to the changing day length and warming temperatures with a surge of hormones that awakens instincts dormant since the last breeding season. The scents on the wind carry new meaning now, speaking not just of prey and territory, but of potential mates and the continuation of genetic lines that stretch back through countless generations. The blooming plateau has become a gathering place for my kind, neutral territory, where the normal boundaries of individual hunting grounds become temporarily fluid. The abundance of prey drawn to the fresh vegetation and reliable water sources makes this concentration of predators possible, creating social opportunities that exist nowhere else in our solitary lives. I move through this transformed landscape with a different kind of alertness than I employ during normal hunting activities. My senses are attuned not just to the movements of prey animals, but to the subtle signs that might indicate the presence of females ready for breeding. The scent markers left on trees and rocks tell stories of identity, condition, and reproductive status that I read with intense interest. The plateau's unique geography creates perfect conditions for the complex courtship behaviors that characterize my species. Open areas provide space for the dramatic displays that demonstrate strength and fitness, while scattered groves and rocky outcrops offer the privacy necessary for more intimate phases of pair bonding. The abundant water sources ensure that the energy-intensive activities of courtship won't be compromised by dehydration or the need to leave the area in search of drinking water. As I crest a low rise covered in flowering sage, I catch a scent that makes every nerve in my body come alive with anticipation. The complex bouquet carries the unmistakable chemical signature of a female in estrus. But this is not just any female, this is a scent I recognize from previous seasons. A magnificent huntress, whose territory borders my own to the southwest. Following the scent trail requires all my tracking skills, as she has moved through the blooming landscape with the deliberate unpredictability of a female testing the persistence and dedication of potential suitors. The trail leads me through dense patches of flowering shrubs, where her scent mingles with the overwhelming fragrances of spring blooms, creating a sensory experience that is both challenging and intoxicating. I find her at last in a natural amphitheater formed by weathered rock formations, a circular clearing, carpeted with soft grass and surrounded by flowering bushes that create perfect acoustics for the vocalizations that will play such an important role in our courtship ritual. She is magnificent, her coat gleaming with health, her sabers ivory white and perfectly proportioned, her body language expressing the confident sexuality of a female in her prime. But I am not alone in my interest. 2 other males have also discovered this remarkable female, and they position themselves at different points around the natural arena with the tense awareness of competitors preparing for conflict. One is younger than me, his coat unmarked by the scars that speak of extensive fighting experience, but his size and obvious strength make him a formidable rival. The other is clearly a veteran, his muzzle gray with age, but his bearing radiating the confidence of an animal who has proven himself in many previous contests. The female acknowledges our presence with regal composure, clearly enjoying the attention while evaluating each of us as potential mates. Her behavior will ultimately determine whether this encounter results in peaceful courtship or violent competition, and we all watch her closely for the signals that will guide our responses. She begins with a vocalization that is both invitation and challenge, a low, melodious call that carries across the flower-scented air and announces her readiness to evaluate suitors. The sound triggers an immediate response from all three males, and we each begin the ritual displays that demonstrate our fitness and worthiness. I start with the traditional territorial roar, but modulated into the deeper, more resonant tones that characterize courtship vocalizations. The sound echoes off the rock walls of the natural amphitheater, creating a complex acoustic experience that showcases both the power of my voice and my understanding of how to use the environment to enhance the display. The younger male responds with his own call, his voice strong and clear but lacking the subtle harmonics that come with experience. His display is enthusiastic and energetic, but there's something almost desperate in his intensity that suggests inexperience with the complex social dynamics of courtship competition. The older male's vocalization is a masterpiece of controlled power, his voice carrying the authority of proven success while maintaining the respectful tones appropriate for addressing a female of high status. His experience is evident in every nuance of his performance, and I recognize immediately that he represents the most serious competition. The female responds to our chorus with her own vocalizations, a complex series of calls that provide feedback on our performances while maintaining her position as the ultimate decision-maker in this interaction. Her sounds carry approval for some elements of our displays, while clearly indicating areas where improvement might be expected. The competitive displays escalate as we each attempt to outperform our rivals. I demonstrate my hunting prowess by bringing down a young deer that has been attracted to the area by the fresh vegetation, executing the kill with the precision and efficiency that speak of superior predatory skills. The meat I offer to the female is both gift and proof of my ability to provide for offspring. The younger male attempts to match my display but lacks the experience to make his hunt appear effortless. His kill is successful but messy, requiring more energy and time than optimal technique would demand. The female's response is polite, but clearly less enthusiastic than her reaction to my demonstration. The older male takes a different approach, focusing on territorial dominance rather than hunting prowess. His scent marking of prominent rocks and trees around the clearing is performed with the authority of an animal accustomed to commanding respect, and his confident appropriation of the best resting spots demonstrates his expectation of deference from competitors. But it's the female's response to these various displays that ultimately shapes the dynamics of our competition. Her body language gradually shifts to indicate preference, and I recognize with growing excitement that her attention is focusing primarily on me. The combination of hunting skill, vocal prowess, and respectful confidence in my approach seems to align with her criteria for an acceptable mate. The realization that I'm becoming the preferred suitor changes the behavior of my competitors dramatically. The younger male's displays become more frantic and aggressive, his desperation evident in his increasingly invasive approaches to the female's personal space. When she responds to this unwelcome pressure with clear rejection signals, he finally accepts defeat and withdraws from the area with obvious disappointment. The older male proves more persistent and strategic in his response to being eclipsed. Rather than withdrawing immediately, he shifts his approach to focus on subtle interference with my courtship attempts. His positioning consistently blocks my access to the female, and his own displays become timed to interrupt the most effective moments of my performance. This behavior creates tension that threatens to escalate into direct conflict, and I find myself torn between the desire to eliminate the competition through force and the recognition that violence during courtship might be interpreted negatively by the female. The situation requires diplomatic skills that are rarely tested in the straightforward world of territorial defense. The resolution comes when the female herself takes action to clarify her preferences. She approaches me directly, ignoring the older male's attempts to intercept her attention, and engages in the gentle nuzzling behavior that indicates acceptance of courtship advances. Her decision is clear and final, and even the persistent older male recognizes that further competition would be futile. As the defeated rival withdraws with whatever dignity he can maintain, the female and I begin the more intimate phases of pair bonding. The public displays give way to quiet moments of mutual grooming and the soft vocalizations that build trust and affection between potential mates. The blooming plateau provides the perfect setting for these tender interactions, its beauty and abundance, creating an environment that celebrates the renewal of life and the continuation of genetic lines that have survived countless challenges throughout deep time. The scents of flowering plants create a sensory backdrop that enhances every moment of connection, while the distant sounds of other wildlife remind us that we're part of something larger than ourselves. As evening approaches and the first stars appear in the darkening sky, we settle together in a sheltered grove where the warm earth still holds the heat of the day, and the fragrance of sage creates a natural perfume that will forever be associated in my memory with this successful courtship. The ancient dance of reproduction continues, as it has for millions of years, ensuring that the genetic heritage of the great saber-toothed cats will survive into future generations. Tomorrow will bring new challenges and the return to solitary hunting lives, but tonight belongs to the timeless rituals that connect us to the deepest purposes of existence. Training the young to hunt. The successful courtship of spring has led to the natural consequence of new life. And now, months later, I find myself in the role of teacher and protector to two young cubs whose survival depends entirely on the hunting skills I can pass on to them. The den site I've chosen is perfect for this purpose, a sheltered alcove in the rocky cliff face that offers protection from weather and predators while providing easy access to the diverse hunting grounds where the cubs must learn to fend for themselves. The cubs are now old enough to accompany me on hunting expeditions, though their participation is limited to observation and very carefully supervised practice with smaller prey. At 4 months of age, they possess the basic physical capabilities necessary for hunting sharp claws, developing sabers, and the muscular coordination required for stalking and pouncing. But they lack the experience and judgment that separates successful predators from dead ones. Teaching hunting skills requires patience of a different kind than any I've employed in my own survival activities. The cubs are naturally curious and energetic, but their enthusiasm often overwhelms their caution. They want to chase everything that moves, regardless of whether it represents appropriate prey or potentially deadly danger. My role is to channel that enthusiasm into productive learning experiences, while keeping them alive long enough to develop adult judgment. This morning's lesson focuses on the fundamentals of stalking, using a large hare as our target practice. The hare is perfect for training purposes, large enough to represent a worthwhile meal if captured, small enough to be non-threatening to the cubs, and possessed of the alertness and speed that will teach them the importance of patience and precision in their approach. I position the cubs downwind from our target, using soft vocalizations and subtle body language to communicate the basic principles of concealment and scent management. The lessons must be delivered without the complex verbal instructions that other species might use, relying instead on demonstration, gentle correction, and the natural mimicry behaviors that characterize young predators learning from their parents. The first cub, slightly larger and more aggressive than its sibling, immediately wants to charge directly toward the hare. I block this impulse with my own body, using gentle but firm physical restraint to communicate that patience is required. The cub's frustration is evident in its twitching tail and barely suppressed energy, but it gradually begins to understand that hunting success requires control over these natural impulses. The second cub proves more naturally inclined toward careful observation, watching the hare's behavior patterns with the focused attention that suggests good predatory instincts. This cub notices how the hare's ears swivel constantly to monitor for danger, how it feeds in short bursts while remaining ready to flee, how it positions itself relative to available cover and escape routes. I demonstrate the proper stalking posture, body low, movements controlled, each paw placement deliberate and silent. The cubs attempt to mirror my position, and while their efforts are clumsy and exaggerated, they show clear understanding of the basic principles. Their natural coordination is good, but they need to develop the fine muscle control that allows for truly silent movement. The approach to the hare requires 15 minutes of careful movement across terrain that I could normally cover in 2 minutes. But this extended timeline allows for multiple teaching moments as we encounter various obstacles and challenges. When one cub steps on a dry branch that snaps loudly, I use the hare's immediate alertness to demonstrate how a single careless sound can ruin an entire hunting sequence. When we reach optimal striking distance, I signal the cubs to remain motionless while I demonstrate the final phase of the hunt. My pounce is deliberately slower and more visible than it would be during normal hunting, allowing the cubs to observe the body mechanics involved in the explosive leap that carries a predator from hiding to prey in a single motion. The hare's escape is successful partly due to the artificial constraints of the teaching situation, but also because this particular individual is experienced and alert. Rather than disappointment, I use this outcome as another teaching opportunity, helping the cubs understand that failed hunts are normal parts of the learning process, and that each unsuccessful attempt provides valuable information for future efforts. The cubs' reactions to the failed hunt reveal important differences in their developing personalities. The aggressive cub shows obvious frustration and wants to immediately chase after the fleeing hare, demonstrating the kind of persistence that can be valuable, but also dangerous if not properly channeled. The more patient cub accepts the outcome philosophically and immediately begins analyzing what went wrong. Our next training session focuses on prey selection and risk assessment using the mixed herd of herbivores that gathers each morning at the river bend. From our concealed position in the tall grass, I help the cubs learn to distinguish between appropriate and inappropriate targets based on size, alertness, position relative to the herd, and proximity to escape routes. The lessons become more complex as I introduce the cubs to the concept of cooperative hunting. Using subtle signals and positioning, I demonstrate how family members can coordinate their activities to increase the chances of successful prey capture. The cubs practice moving in response to my signals, learning to anticipate my movements and position themselves to cut off potential escape routes. But the most crucial lessons involve safety and the recognition of danger. I use the approach of a dire wolf pack to teach the cubs about threats that require immediate retreat rather than confrontation. Their natural bravery could easily become fatal overconfidence without proper understanding of when to fight and when to flee. The teaching extends beyond hunting techniques to include the broader skills necessary for territorial survival. I show them how to read scent markers and understand the messages left by other predators. They learn to recognize the signs of dangerous areas, like tar pits and unstable terrain. Most importantly, they begin to develop the constant environmental awareness that allows experienced predators to detect opportunities and avoid threats. As the days pass, the cubs' skills improve dramatically. Their movements become more controlled, their understanding of prey behavior more sophisticated, their ability to respond to my signals more reliable. But they also begin to show the independence that will eventually lead them to establish their own territories and continue the ancient cycle of predator life. The balance between education and protection becomes more delicate as the cubs grow stronger and more confident. They need experience with real hunting situations to develop adult competence, but that experience inevitably involves real risks that could result in injury or death. My judgment about when to intervene and when to allow them to learn from their own mistakes becomes crucial to their development. One afternoon, the more aggressive cub successfully brings down a young ground squirrel without assistance, executing the hunt with the precision and efficiency that suggest natural talent enhanced by effective training. The pride in its posture and the satisfaction in its vocalizations remind me of my own early hunting successes and the feelings of accomplishment that come with mastering essential survival skills. The second cub's first solo success comes a few days later with the capture of a large bird that had become careless while feeding on insects in the tall grass. This hunt demonstrates the patience and careful observation skills that characterize this cub's developing hunting style, and I recognize that both cubs are beginning to find their own approaches to the common challenge of securing prey. As autumn approaches and the cubs grow toward their first winter, the training intensifies to include the specialized skills necessary for cold weather survival. They learn about energy conservation, the importance of building fat reserves, and the techniques for hunting in snow and ice conditions that will define much of their first independent year. The success of this training period will be measured not by any immediate achievements, but by the cub's survival and reproductive success over the years to come. The skills they learn now will determine whether they become successful predators capable of maintaining their own territories and raising their own young, or whether they join the countless number of young predators who fail to make the transition to independent adult life. But for now, in these final weeks before they must face the world on their own, I continue the patient work of education that represents perhaps the most important contribution I will make to the continuation of my genetic line and the survival of my species in this ancient and challenging world.